a wide range of decentralized applications. So to tell you more on that and get the ball rolling for the evening, I'll request Yash Sharma, blockchain professional, to give a masterclass on Solidity. Yash Sharma has 19 years of industry association as a developer, enterprise architect, technical consultant, technology trainer, and entrepreneur. But before handing it over to Yash, I have a brief announcement to make. We have created a Telegram group called Namaste Web3 movement, where we'll be keeping the dialogue on and will also keep you updating on the subsequent chapters. We would like to invite you to join the channel. You can scan the code right here. Over to you, Yash.
Good evening, everyone, or namaste. So, I'm going to be talking about Solidity today. But before I begin, I want to thank the sponsors for inviting me to this event and giving me this opportunity to be a part of this effort. I always like any effort where the technology awareness is promoted. So, with that, let's begin. So, right at the outset, I want to ask everyone, how many of us have ever written a smart contract in Solidity? Just a raise of hands. Okay, great. So, some of this might be redundant to you. So I anticipated this. Some of us are going to be completely across what I'm going to be talking about, but to others, maybe the term Solidity might be referring to something like a state of matter, which actually isn't really far from the truth. The idea behind Solidity is that it has to execute determinantly. What we mean by that is, since whatever we are building in Solidity is something that executes with a consensus among lots of machines, so it has to execute always in the same way, which is primarily what Solidity inherits from the fact that it is running on the blockchains. Now, one of the things that we have to kind of remember, and it's more of a throwback from earlier times of Ethereum, is that when we build smart contracts, whatever we end up building and running, it is definitely not smart, and it's by no definition a contract. It is essentially like very small snippets of code that you're able to run in a very small, slow, little footprint environment, and we kind of look for results that are pretty raw that we have to decode and then try to understand. So altogether, it's a very primitive kind of an environment, and there are reasons why that is so. And the fact that we are starting with Solidity and kicking off our discussion that way also means that, you know, it's a solid language. So when someone, you know, jumps into Solidity development and thinks about, hey, what does the name mean? Determinant or determinacy or transparency or predictability is the idea behind it. So I'll start off with some trivia about the language. It's about 8 years old. Started by a person called Gavin Wood. He was the CTO in the Ethereum Foundation in its early stages. And he was one of the few people who actually wrote the first Solidity contract. Then folks from JavaScript background, C++ background, or Python stack, they'll all be able to very easily relate to Solidity, because some of the syntax, some of the data constructs, they are very similar. And there's a reason why it's kind of inspired from all of these different technology stacks, which is that at the time when it was being conceptualized, folks from these backgrounds were in the blockchain and specifically the Ethereum ecosystem. So it was felt that we need more and more people to write smart contracts for us and not have like a huge ramp up or a massive learning curve. So let's make it look like one of these, which is essentially good for some of us as well. We come from all of these, maybe not C++ that much, but JavaScript and Python. Python, all AI folks completely into Python. JavaScript, language of the web. So I'm pretty sure that at least 90% of the developers out here, they're familiar with one or the two. Then Solidity runs in a very closed, controlled, and kind of a black boxed environment. It's the reason for that is it's supposed to run multiple times. It's supposed to run on multiple platforms that are hosting the blockchain, and it's supposed to give faster results so that your outcome is confirmed. So all of what I just said might be new to like someone who's new to blockchains, but someone who's done blockchains, all of that kind of, they should be able to relate to that. Then it gets compiled. That again, if you're coming from JavaScript or Python backgrounds, might be something new to you. Java folks, C++ folks, Golang folks, compilation is something you all are, reasonably familiar with. The reason why it was chosen that it should be compiled first is again because it has to run on an environment that is going to be lower footprint, that is going to be limited in terms of what it can support. And it runs on an environment called EVM, not electronic voting machines, Ethereum virtual machine. So although, I mean, at the outset, again, going back to the history of it, it was thought that we should keep it decoupled from the blockchain, where anyone can build a virtual environment and run any technology stack. But that had its own problems. Decoupling is very easy to do, especially if you want to kind of support a very diverse kind of an ecosystem with some sort of standardization. So EVM, compilation to bytecode, old language, 8 years, pretty old in technology world, and then universally understood. These are like some things that you will notice the moment you jump into like programming for Solidity. One thing that I would advise, again, for all the new developers, if Solidity is going to be the first program you ever write, don't do that. You have to first familiarize yourself with programming as a concept, because Solidity runs on top of blockchains. It's not very similar to how normal programs work. There is some semblance of like slowness and there is an element of cryptocurrency associated with it, which kind of introduces additional complexities. So if you want to jump into Solidity, spend, let's say, 3 to 6 months with either Python or JavaScript, then maybe a good idea to, do smart contracts. Now this again is a kind of a techie diagram, but if we're talking about Solidity, we have to get technical. This is a typical flow, again at a very high level, of what your development cycle is going to look like. At the right side, we've got these development environments and tooling that is going to help you, start your code. You've got those little icons, they represent IDEs. First one is Truffle, second one is Remix, third one is Hard Hat, the hat one. So all of these tools, they're like your starting point. But start with Remix because it's easier, it's got no setup, it's a browser-based tool, all you need is a connection. But at some point you'll have to move to either Truffle or Hard Hat because you'll have to commit your code. Once you've written your code, there is a step called compilation. Again, to folks who are working with compilable languages, this is a given. Compilation results in generation of bytecode. Java folks know what bytecode is. It's exactly the same here as well. Bytecode, that weird sort of alpha numeric string, is what actually gets put on the blockchain. The process of deployment, where whatever you've done in your code, whatever hack you've written, that goes and gets stored on a part of blockchain. And that's potentially why you could call it a contract, because what you have to do is, as a part of deployment, you have to sign that bytecode, digitally sign, not wet signatures. So it reaches one ledger record. Blockchain is a stack of records, stack of records grouped into blocks and chained together. So the deployment reaches one such record. And this process of deployment is called a transaction. In fact, anything that we do with the blockchain is a transaction. So once you're done with your deployment, you've done your testing, everything's doing fine, then you have to trigger the contract. You have to actually let users use it. That's when the lower part of it is, it gets kicked off. So you have this entire ecosystem of decentralized applications, or dApps, that are geared towards, or that are equipped with capabilities to interact with your smart contracts. Now, let's say if you write a lending application, or you've written a trade finance application, or whatever fancy financial product, you need users, and you need users to interact with it. And that's when you build a user experience. You accept inputs from users, you assemble them into like the input that blockchain can understand, wrap it into a transaction, digitally sign it, and take it to the blockchain. That taking it to the blockchain is transaction. It triggers your smart contract to basically do what you intended to do. And then that whole execution is done on the very right side, that box, which is EVM. It's very much like a, very minimal processor which understands certain set of instructions that are going to get executed. Now this whole process costs money, deployment and transactions, which is why one has to be very careful about how optimal their code is. If Ethereum keeps, staying as volatile it might get very expensive to run blockchains. So that is where smart programming comes in, and which is where it's also slightly different than your legacy technology stacks. Going back to my earlier suggestion on do not start your programming life with Solidity. So that little wolf icon you see is the transaction signing piece. So we've got a couple of toolings here. On the top right, top left, you've got your integrated development environment, IDE. At the bottom, you've got a user tool called MetaMask, that's the icon. But you could use any capability that can sign transactions for you. So when I keep saying signing transactions, what I refer to is a cryptographic process that converts users' authority into something that blockchains can understand. Again, I said that in a very simple sentence. There's actually a lot more to it, but I'll not go there. So I've talked about a bunch of things, and I've collected them into 4 quadrants again. IDEs. This is the first thing you'll encounter as a developer. Remix, Hard Hat, Truffle, and there are a bunch of them, also. So IDEs is where you write your code. Compilers. So most of the IDEs have their compilers internally set up, but if you want to kind of decouple the editing part from compilation part, then you've got 2 popular compilers, Sol-C and Sol.js. Then you have to worry about the environments. And it's kind of critical in blockchain world because, again, one very important piece, we are dealing with money, cryptocurrency. So you have to deploy it in an environment where, maybe the basic logic of your code can work, which might be local to your system. There are tools out there that can simulate blockchains for you. Then ultimately you take it to testnets. Now testnets are typical to blockchains. And testnets, what they basically offer you is a way in which you can run your code exactly how it would run in production, minus all the risk. So the risk again comes from the money part of it. So there are testnets that I've named out there, and there are a bunch of them additionally. A testnet is where it's exactly like a blockchain where you have multiple nodes running a blockchain just like it should run, and cryptocurrency being used to pay for transactions. But the only difference is that cryptocurrency does not have any value or tradability. So any serious blockchain framework, Ethereum obviously being the top of it, but there are so many other Ethereum compliant blockchains out there. All of them offer testnets. It's critical to the developer community to adopt that blockchain. Without testnets, it's next to impossible to start building for a blockchain. You write your code for main live production, and next day you notice it's hacked, or next day you notice you missed something and your money is gone. So remember, testnets are more important to you. This is potentially where your UAT also might happen, this is probably where every sprint you do a deployment to just demonstrate your code. So just taking a quick segue, does anyone know the context of this picture? Okay, does anyone know who this guy is? Slightly high looking guy. His name is Vitalik Buterin. He's the guy why we are here. He conceptualized Ethereum. He was from the Bitcoin community and he realized Bitcoin is tremendously limiting. I mean, we all know Bitcoin just does money transfers, that's it. If you want to build something richer than a money transfer, if you want to do, let's say, insurance, if you want to do lending, then Bitcoin doesn't help us. He felt the same and he proposed that there should be a way in which smart contracts should be able to get deployed on blockchains, inheriting all the advantages of blockchains. And then he came up with Ethereum when he did not find much support in the Bitcoin world. Now this picture actually is from a couple of years back, I think 4 or 5 years back, when there was a rumor that he had died. And what he's showing is the hash of the block 3930000, which was his proof to show everyone that actually he's alive at this block. It's a way of submitting proof of life. One very important use case with just one picture. So, kind of a trivia again that I thought I'd bring up. So this is what I use very frequently, and I end up training a lot of people. I think this is my 5th or 6th year of training related to blockchain and peripheral technologies. What I usually do is I leverage on the things that a potential trainee might already know. Now, it isn't just my realization that one should not jump into blockchain development right off the bat. Everyone knows that. I mean, very few are as adventurous. So, most of the trainees that I get, they are at least six months to 1 year into some sort of programming language, which means there is going to be a substantial part of solidity that they already are aware of. Because it's a programming language, it works exactly like other programming languages, plus some other things. So I've kind of divided the features into two, the green part and the orange/brown part. So in the green part are things that any programmer would know. I mean, if you've done 3 months of programming, you've come across this. Loops, control structures, and that's the first thing you learn, right? Then data structures, C++ guys, that's exactly what most of their first year papers are based off. How do you handle errors? Every programming language has their own error handling, but it kind of has these things. And then borrowing from the object-oriented world, every programming construct has fields and it's got behavior. So you'll all be familiar with, folks from programming, you'll be familiar with what is functions, how they manipulate the state, and how concepts of object-oriented programming percolate into your use case. So, and then every language has some element of strength of typing, whether it's really strongly typed C++, Java, or whether it's extremely lenient VB script, JavaScript, or it's kind of their TypeScript. So these are the things that if you already know, you're halfway there. Even you can say 60% there in solidity. For example, let me see. Look at the code on the right side. Every programmer worth their salt would just look at it and just understand in like 3 seconds what it's doing. Then not really hard to understand. It's dealing with arrays. Arrays is a concept universal to programming. It would be surprising if there's a language that does not support it. Index-based access, that's what arrays are. Then, let's see. See? I mean, this is pure JavaScript. This is a bit tricky, but if you spend like 1 minute on it, you'll understand what's going on. We are doing two things with strings. One is hooking them together. It's not possible for Solidity to deal with strings comfortably. So you have to do what's there in line 9, kind of a converting into arrays, byte arrays, and then, recombining it back. Pretty simple if you know what I'm talking about. Then strings do not compare. So what we are doing in line 15 is we're just hashing the strings and then comparing the hash. Hashes compare. Right? So if you even just look at the code and you have like 6 months of programming under your belt, you're there. Now the orange part, this is where the fun begins. We are dealing with wallets. So I'm pretty sure anyone who's done any amount of Googling, maybe for one day for blockchains, they'll come across the word wallets. Wallets is a construct that is your identity on the blockchain. It houses your authorization, which if you look deep down is your private key, and it has in a slightly more sophisticated format, it has the ability to sign transactions also. MetaMask that I talked about earlier, that's a wallet. So that addresses type, it's a type. It's only there in Solidity because we're dealing with wallets. And addresses, unlike your legacy programming languages, addresses can hold money. They're like credit cards, you can fund them. Then addresses again are of two types. I might be getting ahead of things, but there are one types of addresses that can just hold code, your smart contracts. And then the other type, which are representing you as users who can hold money and sign transactions. So, and then there is further subdivision when it just comes to Solidity, which is addresses and addresses payable. Solidity cannot send money to addresses, but it can send money to addresses payable. I'm using the word payable, which is going to be used in so many other places when you actually do a deep dive in Solidity. Payable is a term which, obviously when we say payable, you can send money to it is what we mean. And intuitively that is how it gets applied as well. You can have payable functions, you can have payable contracts, you can have payable addresses. This is where Solidity is kind of different, the payability part. Now you'll keep hearing the words like programmable money, terms like financial products on Solidity, terms like treasury contracts. All of these are made payable, possible because we have the word payable and the facility payable. So if, let's say you start learning Solidity and you're kind of a super smart guy, in first half an hour you're done with the green part, my suggestion is first start studying addresses. That's your starting point. Then globals is something that you'll come across and keep learning. Globals are things that are available to your Solidity smart contract execution because it's being run as a blockchain program. So there'll be globals which are housed under the term message or object message. Message is representing your transaction or trigger. So earlier I mentioned everything on your contract can only be triggered by an external user authorized push, which is called a transaction. So I used a very non-technical term, push. What I meant was that user has to intentionally trigger it. Now this is one thing that you have to realize and always keep in mind, because there's a massive amount of confusion around this, even among some very experienced people, obviously not programmers. Smart contracts cannot run on their own. You have to trigger them. So when you hear terms like code is the law, smart contracts execute, very predictably, or smart contracts can be programmed to execute determinately. What we are not saying is that they'll run on their own. What we are just saying is that they will run in a certain way all the time. You will hear your clients, and I know that most of us are fresh developers here. You'll join some company services, possibly, and then you build your first dApp solution and you'll be talking to your client. The client is going to say, every 31st of the month, I want to run this contract. Can you do something like that? No. You have to build a scheduler, you'll have to build a trigger, you'll have to build a timer, whatever. But that trigger has to be there at the 31st to, push the contract or, run it or whatever. There is no global trigger, there's no automated execution, no. In fact, a very simple way to hack the blockchain is stop everyone from transacting with it. It'll die that instant. Ethereum value 0. Next, contract to contract calls. So this isn't something that is specific to Solidity. We have modules, libraries, Java archives, Golang binaries calling other code. We have seen that. The only difference here is that contract to contract calls are similar to you calling the contract with slight differences. I'm not going to talk about them here, might just end up confusing you, but you have to learn this. There are different ways, different nuances, which kind of make this a slightly more involved process. And this is the weak point where hacks happen, contract to contract calls. So we have to be careful. So you'll hear terms like re-entrancy. You'll hear terms like, spoofing of addresses. All of that potentially can happen here. So be very careful. That's the only reason why that's there in the orange section. Focus hard on it. Then I talked about payable functions and treasury contracts. The fact is that the whole reason why smart contracts, DeFi, all of it is such a big deal is because you can delegate, you can relegate the control of your funds to an automated system, which is your smart contract. Cannot be done in such an out-of-the-box way in regular legacy technology stacks. Think of a programmable credit card, which can ensure that your debits happen at the same from certain users or certain billers. You can do it, but it will not be within the credit card, right? Think of programmable or think of use cases where you have, let's say, your bank account that does automated disbursals. You can do it. I know you're thinking that, but think of it that it can do automated disbursable by design. Every bank account, giving you the ability to hook up maybe, 20 family members who can, slowly receives money from you. You have to set up instructions to do that. So that's where the real power of smart contracts lie. Ability to program your assets, ability to introduce logic intrinsically to your assets. And that's what you do here. You build a contract, you give it some funds, and show everyone that, hey, these funds are being used this way. You can verify, it's very transparent. Then, finally, Solidity is heavily templated. very heavily more templated than any other programming language. Obviously, Java's 20 years old, you'll find so many libraries out there, but they are not so frequently used as templates like ERC20 token contract. Every day, about 1 million compilations of that template happen. Not all of them get deployed, but it does happen. So, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is that you can inherit code from a template that's tested and found to be correct and accurate, fraudulent, fraud resistant, and all of that. So you don't have to spend your time, getting that right. The bad part is that sometimes you can, build an entire token and not know how it's working, because you've just inherited from a template and you know what it's supposed to do, but how is it doing that? So to become like a good programmer, you should internally know what's going on, so that at least you'll be able to explain if in case you have to customize it. And there are very typical use cases is that you want to build a token ERC20. So when I'm jumping to ERC20, I have to I should explain the process as well. Ethereum has a community that works on improving the ecosystem, more specifically the blockchain itself, to make it more scalable, more viable. And a part of that community does, deliberation on requests that come in about how to define better contracts. How do you build contracts that address most typical use cases? And the process is called Ethereum Request for Comment, or ERC. So smart folks from that community, they come up with something, and then others look at it, and then they discuss, trash it or make it better, and then it becomes a standard. ERC20 is one such standard, very old, but it's like the most popular standard when it comes to building your own cryptocurrency on Ethereum compliant blockchains. It's so popular that there are, multiple third-party libraries that just let you import that contract template and then, with 2-3 lines of customization, build it for yourself. In fact, time permits will do that. So, templating, that's where you need to deep dive, because most of the times you will be kind of spending time finding out the best template for the specific use case you have at hand. Decentralized exchanges, they are also templated. If you are able to find one that suits your use case, study it, test it, but do not, if it's possible, do not write it from scratch. So this kind of becomes your ready reckoner, or maybe your phased approach when you want to get into Solidity. And it is possible for you to kind of, although Solidity itself is not a very complicated language, but it is possible for you to specialize. Let's say if you're very good in building curation platforms. NFT is the craze these days, and you'll find at any point in time, 3 of your 5 clients would be interested in building something around NFT if you get into services. So if you kind of get that expertise, you'll always be busy without knowing rest of the Solidity. Not something I'd recommend, but it's like a jump start. Similarly, if let's say you are really smart with token economics and you figured out some cool DeFi use cases, and you get inspiration from the client or something, and you are able to build, let's say, the next generation insurance platform on Ethereum blockchain. Then tokens are your friend. You will be using tokens heavily. So when I say tokens, I mean the ERC20. So there are two kinds of tokens, fungible and non-fungible. And I'll take a quick pause to see if there's anyone who can differentiate between the two. Fungible, non-fungible, anyone? Yes, sir, please. I saw you. Okay. Yes, ma'am, please. Perfect answer. Thank you so much. Right, so as she said, replaceable units. Let's say if I talk about any asset that is exactly like other unit of that asset. 1 gram of gold is exactly like the other gram. $1 is exactly like the other dollar. Obviously the note might be soiled, but the value is the same. So those are fungible. The issue is that we are so used to fungible assets that we don't see how the other situation could be. So think of situations where, let's say, you want to represent parcels of land in a very big area, then corner plot would be more expensive, although equal in area, than rest of them. So that's where non-fungibility is there. You cannot replace the corner plot with the plot in the middle. So this is what, and the fact that you can represent both of them, and the reason why I'm bringing it up in a discussion around solidity is that there are templates to represent both of those situations. And the entire NFT revolution is because of this ability that you can represent digital assets individually separate from the other asset and evaluate and trade them as NFT instances. So let's say, and this might be fun. All of what I said around templating is exemplified here. Let's say I want to build an NFT that is going to be rewarded to anyone who participates here. Then the code is 33 lines, because I'm importing so many different templates that kind of reduce my job to nil. In fact, these lines that you see, they are also not written by me. I just did a drag and select. So what I did using this was I built an NFT, and I kind of took this picture, hooked up my small passport size picture on top of it, and created this. Is OpenSea, by the way. I'm 100% sure everyone would be aware of it. So I built up this NFT and gave it to myself. This is a collection. This is me. Now it took me around 30 seconds to do it, purely because of the templating that's there. And I mean, 20 of those seconds was spent in me, adjusting the image and all. So let's say if I want to give someone else, hang on. Whom to pick? Varun. Okay. I'm an old time guy. I use GIMP. I already have GIMP. Hang on. So all I have to do is, and this is not Solidity, by the way. What I'm doing is just grabbing his picture from there. Hopefully this is fine with you. Or I don't care, sue me. So let me hook it up here. Let's see. I'm not good at this, as you might realize. All right, let me. How about this? How about this? So I'm just trying to show you how easy it is. So I'm going to upload his image to again, this is not Solidity, so here, this is an IPFS service provider called Pinata. For those of us who are dealing with NFT, probably deal with it day in, day out. So let's see. It's really slow. This is the metadata file. Again, I'll not go in depth because the moment you learn NFTs, you'll kind of get the hang of it in a second. So this is his image that I'm hooking up to. Oops, sorry. Did I get the spelling right? All right. Thank you. So this metadata file reaches IPFS and we are done. Let's see. At some point, we're going to see his NFT appear as well. anyway, while it does that, that's all that I had. Questions? Any questions, guys?
Oh, there are a few questions, Yash.
Yes, ma'am.
There.
Hi, good evening. Could you please throw some light on accountability when it comes to smart contract?
Accountability, you mean
From a legal
who's responsible if something goes
Yes.
wrong? So the process that usually industry follows is that every time there is a project that goes live, prior to that, your smart contract goes through a third-party audit. And there are specialized auditing companies that do that. So if, let's say, anything goes wrong, then the responsibility is divided. Sometimes there are contracts that are arrived at between auditor, client, and the developers to kind of share the responsibility in the right way. So it's more of a context dependent question. What is the scale of the project? Who are the auditors? Sometimes there are more than one auditors. So technically there's like no one accountable, but from a project standpoint, folks get together and then kind of insure themselves against any eventuality, and that's when legal teams are involved and they figure out, who's accountable.
Thank you.
Sure. So we've got your NFT.
Hi. Actually, I'm not from the development department, but from a DevOps point of view, I wanted to understand that if we are trying to integrate the transactions with the cloud providers, be it Azure, AWS, or GCP or anything, are we going to have some kind of a native services coming up, or do we have to develop the whole infrastructure by ourselves and all regarding that?
It's possible you might be conflating two things. So when we talk about cloud managed blockchains, they are usually private blockchains, which potentially are subscribed to or set up by entities that want to run a very specific use case in a closed environment. Can there be a public blockchain node in the cloud? Yes, that's possible. Does that help you or does that change the conversation in any way? No. So it's like a legitimate blockchain node. But when it comes to managed blockchains, there needs to be a conversation around. So there are two types of managed blockchains. Ones are the ones that we are all familiar with, like Hyperledger, Ethereum private chain, Corda, there are a bunch of them out there, which are just installed by the cloud provider, optimized a bit, and you can subscribe. There are others that are just built entirely by the cloud provider themselves, like Amazon has Amazon Quantum DB or something. There's a bunch of them out there. So you may want to understand, depending on your use case, whether you want to be cloud independent, where maybe a version of Hyperledger can run on Azure versus and one on AWS, and they can synchronize and be a part of one consortium, versus sticking to Amazon and Amazon Quantum DB or whatever they have. So you have to be cognizant of that. But Web3 is like a different conversation altogether. Public blockchains, private blockchains usually don't have anything in common, no overlap.
Thank you.
Sure. Good questions. Anything else, guys? All right. And thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you so much, Yash. That was really deep diving into the subject. And I'm sure the ones who haven't been able to ask questions can hound him later. He's around. Thank you for those wonderful insights, Yash, and for taking our time. It was a wonderful and hour-long session, and you must catch breath and have some water. All right, everyone, it's time to start the proceedings of the night. As we enter the third phase of the internet, Web 3.0 is decentralized and promises to be secure and autonomous. With the use of blockchain technology, smart contracts, and artificial intelligence, Web 3.0 aims to create a new internet where users have more control over their data and interactions. Let's also explore the possibilities of this exciting new era and what it means for the future of internet. Let's first have a look at the CoinDCX AV, and then we proceed on.
Crypto products and NFTs are unregulated and can be highly risky. There may be no regulatory recourse for any loss from such transactions. Here's the thing about change. It's always happening. Mere fragments of time chipping away little by little at reality as we know it. Until, when we least expect, change does what it does best. It arrives. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves on the cusp of taking our next big leap. A whole new world entirely at our fingertips. Only this time, more open, more equal, more inclusive, and more fair. With the power to liberate in your hands and the responsibility to uphold its vision in ours. We are CoinDCX, catalysts of change in a new digital world. Founded in 2018, we are India's leading crypto exchange. Trusted by over 1.3 crore users, supported by many top investors, and the hard work of more than 600 employees. Our efforts ensure equal access to a plethora of revolutionary new digital pursuits and enable interactions with an all-new, decentralized digital world. Our products are safe, secure, and compliant. We also support many promising new ventures that help strengthen the broader digital ecosystem. And for those who seek it, we offer a comprehensive crypto education platform. A decentralized new digital world is upon us. Change is upon us. The only question is, are we willing to embrace it? CoinDCX. Change starts together. Crypto products and NFTs are unregulated and can be highly risky. There may be no regulatory recourse for any loss from such transaction.
Well, it's now my pleasure to invite Manisha Gupta, Editor Commodities and Currencies, CNBC TV 18 on stage to give you all a welcome address. Please put your hands together for Manisha.
Well, I see a very young Web3 builder. Hi. And we hope we'll talk to you more further as we proceed into the evening there. But a very warm welcome and hello from to Namaste Web3 Pune edition. You know, our earlier events in Bangalore and Delhi got together the industry leaders and regulators on the same platform, and there have been loads of learnings from that. In Pune today, let's step ahead and we converse about the need for collaborations and innovations and inclusion as was shown to you in the EV itself. The future of internet is upon upon us is something that we keep saying, but how much are we able or willing to collaborate and innovate is something that we will dwell upon. Web3, also known as the decentralized web or the blockchain-based web, is poised to revolutionize an internet as we know it. Unlike the traditional web, Web3 enables the creation of distributed applications and services that are more secure, transparent, and resilient, giving more control to users over their data, digital assets, and identities. In fact, its proponents herald it as a paradigm shift that could fundamentally change how the internet and internet-based businesses and the internet economy work. It also has the potential to transform industries and reshape our online experiences is immense, and we are only beginning to scratch the surface of what is possible. With decentralization being at the core of Web3, there is no doubt that the future of internet is indeed upon us. So how we make it more reorganized, open, and equitable digital world is what this event will focus upon. We hope to have great conversations and look for solutions with you here today at Namaste Web3, making India Web3 ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Manisha. Thank you so much. It is indeed a moment of pride for us, as is with the Indian Web3 community. We raise awareness amongst the masses and showcase the many benefits it can bring to businesses, individuals, and the society as a whole. And to elaborate more on this, may I please welcome Barun Dubey, Head of Blockchain at Lab 45 Wipro Limited, for the keynote address. With over 23 years of experience as a leader in his current position, he oversees Wipro's strategy and investment in blockchain technology. His passion lies in driving innovation and fostering the development of future innovators and thought leaders who can revolutionize industries and positively impact people's lives. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Varun Dubey.
Good evening to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here amongst a very young crowd. And on a Saturday evening when most of your friends and family members and colleagues are watching movies, you are here. That shows your passion. And it's an honor to be talking to a passionate crowd here. Today, my talk is not going to be about the Web3 technology aspects per se. What I'm going to talk about today is the business aspect. So as a famous shark on national television said, "Isme dhanda kaise banega?" Right? That is what we are going to address today. And therefore, I would just like to understand how many developers and builders in the room? Raise of hands. Wow. How many of you would want to be an entrepreneur? Fantastic. So hopefully you will take away something from here. And the question is, why should any entrepreneur consider Web3 for building the next enterprise, right? So let's look at some data. I'm going to rewind 2 decades and I'm going to show you some data. We have tried our best to sanitize this data, but yeah, take it with a pinch of salt. I think the intent is more important. These are traditional businesses. We all know them. I don't think they need any introduction. They've been there for decades. I'll take your focus towards the last column in this table, which basically talks about the growth rate, annual growth rate of their market capitalization over a period of 2 decades, right? Compare this with the big tech companies. Again, they don't need any introduction. But look at the last column. What do you see? The big tech companies have been able to grow faster than the traditional businesses. Traditional businesses brought technology at some point of time to optimize and run their businesses, but big tech actually made technology their business. Now my most favorite point. These are some of the representatives, so apologies all the founders who don't see their name here. I'm sure you are doing much better than this, but the point I'm trying to make here is, look at the last column and look at the growth rates. But more interestingly, look at the second column. Most of these ventures were not even a decade old. In fact, if you go below, as you go down the table, you will see they are 2 years, 3 years in the market. So what is the reason of this astonishing growth that they are seeing? Is it just speculation or ignorant investors trying to get rich overnight? What do you think so? What's the secret sauce? Why these companies are able to grow at astonishing growth rates, where some of the big ones are struggling, even though they are driven or the technology is the core business? Well, this is my perspective. There are 3 reasons. Every blockchain project or every blockchain or Web3 company is built on decentralization. As Yash taught you, they run on smart contracts. And almost every Web3 project is open source. So you can go to Aave, their GitHub page. You can go to the smart contract. You can read the code of the smart contract today. What it does is it brings a sense of transparency and trust amongst the users. They know how this organization or how this contract will behave like at runtime, right? This instills a trust of faith and, trust and faith in the user base of these companies. That's the first reason. The second reason is, like any startups, these are also startups, they were started by 1 or 2 developers, right? But they don't need servers, they don't need farms, they don't need cloud to run their business. All they need is a bunch of smart contracts running on some public chain, whether it's Ethereum or Polygon or any other public chain, right? So they can just publish this contract and it goes live, and then you're on the business. So they manage to operate at very, very, very thin infrastructure cost. And third, the most important, all Web3 projects rely on their community. Very important component of their existence. Now this community is nothing but the users that use the project. They are the users that build on the project, and they are the users who become the advocate of the projects, right? So let's for a second keep Web3 aside. Pick up any business that you know of. And it can be a kirana store in your local society. Even though it is a localized business, if you put that business in context of this framework here, right? These 3 factors. You have loyal customers, they have faith in you, right? You have fantastic operating structure and cost structure. You are able to manage your margins well. Third, your customers are your advocates. They bring better and more customers to you, right? It's very hard to imagine a business like this fail, isn't it? I think this is the secret sauce for Web3, because these 3 success factors for any business are built into the Web3 technology itself. And for you to goof up, you have to goof up really badly to not get benefits of this if you're building on Web3. So any project or any business that you build on Web3, you automatically inherit all these 3 qualities of a successful business. And this is the reason why every VC, every funding person who has to do any funding is so gung-ho about the whole Web3 ecosystem and Web3, because this is where it is, all you have to make sure is don't goof up, right? You inherit all the 3 qualities of running a successful business, right? Of course, you need to have a great product, that goes without saying, right? But then these are the 3 things that really help you. Now, when I go and talk to people in Web3 community, there is a big resentment around things not moving here in India from a government sector policy perspective, and from, people ask me, Varun, what will be how will the next billion users come on Web3, right? So I'm going to briefly address that, and I'm going to narrow down to India, because we are talking of India context, right? Well, we are very lucky. Our generation is lucky that we are witnessing a massive infrastructure build up in India, both physical and digital. And I don't think I need to tell you, Aadhaar, UPI, these are centralized infrastructures. But How about decentralized infrastructures? Let me give you a few examples of that. Aviation industry, I don't think it needs introduction. Air India just bought a bunch of 400 plus aircrafts few weeks back, and they were all over the news in terms of how the aviation sector is going to grow and expand. Right? Last year alone, there were around 123 million travelers in India. Right? So, what has this to do with Web3? Well, Arpit just tweeted today on LinkedIn, DigiYatra. How many of you have used DigiYatra? Oh, that's a dismal. Okay. So DigiYatra is an app approved by Ministry of Civil Aviation that helps you bring your credentials together and check in security with paperless. Right? So what you do is, you take your Aadhaar, do an authentication, it comes to you in your wallet. Right? Then you take your boarding pass, it becomes an e-boarding pass. Then you take your COVID certificate, it becomes a COVID credential. Now you have to be geek like me to understand and go into FAQs of that product to really understand that it is built on decentralized identity and verifiable credentials technology. Right? And if you look at the FAQs, they talk about that all these things that are coming, you have a physical possession in your phone of credentials which are in your control. Right? And DID, if you follow Web3, is one of the key pillars of how Web3 will change the way self-sovereign identity will look like in future, right? So, in a decentralized infrastructure. So, DigiYatra today offers that. And I have used it personally in Delhi, I have used it in Pune, I have used it in Bangalore, and I'm sure there are multiple airports that are coming in. Put this in context of the vision our Prime Minister and our government has for 2040. This traveling volume of 123 million is going to get multiplied by 6. Right? What else do you want? What else mass adoption do you want? Right? When you land up into an airport, you will be interacting with Web3 technology. Right? So this is one example. So, yeah, we all know, India is moving towards solar power and renewable power sources. And as part of that, we know that, many cities are doing pilots where you can put solar power plants on your rooftop, whether you are a society or whether you are a house, and you produce electricity from sun, solar light, whatever, right? And then you consume that electricity, and if you have surplus, you can sell it back to the grid of that city or that state. So, Uttar Pradesh government had done a pilot, and 2 weeks back they have come out with regulations around P2P trading. It's called peer-to-peer energy trading. And as per my knowledge, there are 2 players that are involved in multiple pilots across India for a decentralized peer-to-peer trading network. One is Power Ledger, and the second one is Energy Web Foundation. Right? So this is another example of how Web3 will not only come to your daily lives, it's going to come and sit on your rooftop. Right? Okay, let's move on. It's not over yet. I have many more examples. We all know, you all would have heard about Skill India initiative, right? Where our government is trying to train our workforce and get them ready with skills that will be required in the 21st century so that we can realize that vision of some $1 trillion, by 2035 or whatever, right? That goal is. Now, as part of this, there are multiple government agencies and industry associations that are working on 3 primary topics: skill standardization, skill recognition, and skill credit bank. So today, when you go into an engineering college, you have a prescribed syllabus from AICTE that you follow. But if you go abroad in US and other places, you can replace one of those subjects that you don't like. Remember that control system? I don't know what computer science guys are doing with control systems as a subject, right? You can replace that with, say, computational neurosciences. And if your overall credit score adds up, you will get an engineering degree, right? So we as Wipro, we are doing our bit in this. And what we have done is we have created a verifiable skill credential platform. And it's called DICE ID. It's again built on DID and verifiable credentials. But what we are trying to do here is to create India's largest talent ecosystem by bringing in government agencies, getting their policies onboarded as credentials, getting training institutes, getting colleges, universities to issue those credentials, and getting the recruiters and the employers to accept those credentials. So this large talent ecosystem across India would enable each one of you to get your next job, to get shortlisted for your next, to prove your skills. Taking it further, we all know that today's children are not very keen on working for somebody. They want to work off their own, right? They want to be freelancers, right? It's gig economy is what they call it, right? Now here it is, right? We as employees, when we leave one organization and go to the other organization, we get something called as certificate of experience or transfers, experience certificate, right? But as a freelancer, you don't get anything. You've worked on 50 projects on Solidity, right? But how do you prove your skill, right? So what we have done is, there's another platform that we have called as Topcoder, which has already 1.6 million freelancers today, right? And we have integrated the skill credentials right with the Topcoder Academy, where you can learn new skills, where you can learn the future upcoming skills. You can take courses, you can take certifications. And then you go to Topcoder Academy, Topcoder Marketplace, and there you can actually participate on projects. You can do gigs for multiple organizations. And every time you do that, you collect credentials. And these credentials, if you want to do a job, you can do that. Or you could go to some other marketplace like Behance or Fiverr. And you can use these credentials to quickly build your reputation in that. Today, you can't do that. Today, if you go to Fiverr or any other network for freelancing, you have to build your reputation from scratch, right? So this is the power of skill credentials. It will not only help, learners prove their skills and credentials, it will also help them quickly find, it will help the ecosystem find quickly the talent they need with the right skills, right? Very quickly, last use case, shipping industry. Well, we want to be, again, a $1 trillion economy, but a large part of that economy will be built overseas, in the sense that a lot of trade happens through shipping, right? And shipping was one industry which has a lot of paperwork, trust me. And everybody struggled during COVID, right? Because there were no people, you could not get through customs, you could not collect your deliveries from the port. So what has happened really is, okay, I'm sorry, I'm struggling with a little bit of centralized infrastructure. So, okay, yeah. So, Port Authority of India and Ministry of Shipping and Trade, and also a Coidcx platform, which I think runs on Polygon, if I'm not mistaken. They have come together to solve this problem at an industry scale. So every shipment that goes out, the entire documentation, like bill of lading and some of the other critical documents, all of them are now digitized and are completely decentralized, right? And what I hear last is also the banks are joining in, so your letter of credits can also be exchanged on the same infrastructure, right? So these are few examples of how India is adopting Web3. Yes, keeping aside the noise around crypto and other things, but these are all decentralized technologies, and they will all be building blocks for national infrastructure, which will touch our lives on a daily basis, right? Now the question is, all of you will say, this is fine, but what do I do? Now what's next, right? I attended Solidity course, and I heard your talk where you talk about, why you should build the business, but where do I start, right? Well, the good news is Web3 is decentralized, which means anybody can own it. Anybody can solve it. be it an organization, be it an enterprise, be it government, or be it a developer somewhere sitting there hiding his face because he doesn't want to be seen, right? So anybody, if you have a large scale problem to solve, all you need to do is create smart contracts, figure out how you want to solve it, and you can start right away. It's not like any Play Store will ban you from there. Nobody can bar you. You can solve the next big problem today, right? And a lot of founders here sitting in the front rows are actually doing that, right? Web3 is incomplete. It's a fact, right? It is getting built as we speak. There are white spaces which are still not addressed. Like, for example, a famous project from India, EPNS, Ethereum Push Notification Services, is trying to solve the problem of messaging and notifications, which do not exist on Web3. I met the founders of Jur in the previous event, and they are trying to solve the problem of scaling communities for decentralized autonomous organizations to millions of users, right? So there are a lot of white spaces. So the incomplete stack is actually a good news for all of you. So you need to figure out where do you want to play and what you want to build, right? Web3 is composable. I think Yash spoke about how you can call one contract from other contract. I will take it to different level. You want to solve a problem at any layer of Web3. If you're not happy with Ethereum, create your own layer 2 solution on Ethereum. That's what Polygon did initially, right? If you're not happy with the way Aave contracts work, use their contracts and build on top of it. Change it. Inheritance, right? C, C++, Java people, inheritance, right? Web3 needs community. So this is good news for people who are not developers, okay? They are social media managers, they're media people, they're writers, influencers on YouTube. Community is a very important part of Web3, and there are completely new roles that are emerging in context of your skills, right? If you are a community manager, you can become a community manager. You can manage Discord channels. You can manage marketing campaigns for in the decentralized world, right? There are specific companies which are building MarTech for decentralized world, right? Skill yourself, upgrade yourself, not just developers, even the non-technical skill sets, even the almost everybody can participate in this ecosystem. That's the power of community, right? Now, I don't know, I think I finished before time, but what I would like to say is, in the words of John Woo, never bet against innovation. And my grandmother always used to say, when you can't beat them, join them, right? So my suggestion is, start your journey. There are enough technical content available on YouTube. There are courses. There is enough. It's all open source, guys. So you just go to GitHub, open a repository, and you can see the code of live projects that exist today, right? So go out there, start your journey. Wish you all the best. I'm open to any questions if you have.
Yeah, hi. Hello. Yeah. My name is Amit Chandra. I have a question that in terms of, you have shown the adaptation in the public sector, that what are the things going on. But in the terms of the private sectors, what we have seen, or I have seen, is that whenever we go to the customer are not that much confident about investing on certain projects of decentralization.
Absolutely.
So what you think that what is the reason behind it? Whether the awareness is one of the reason, or the benefit or the features of decentralization or blockchain, that is the accountability,
None of them.
reason? Okay.
None of them. I've been selling to enterprises for last 20 years, okay, right? You have to understand, what are you selling them? Are you selling them Web 3.0? Then it will not fly. You have to solve a problem for them.
Okay.
Right? If you're not solving a problem, you're just forcing a technology through. And there will be questions on technology. You look at DigiYatra. If you don't read FAQs, you will never find out that it uses decentralized identity and verifiable credentials, which is a Web3 technology.
Correct.
So according to me, the best implementations of technology are where the users don't see the technology. They experience the app and the business process they are interacting with. And that is what UX is all about. So focus, if you want to sell to private sector, focus on solving the problems. I will give you an example. We were working with a large cable company in US, and they actually are looking at providing and engaging the next generation of users. So get it right. Web3 is not something that we will talk about. Like our generation was responsible for getting mobility into the market. Everything went mobile banking, Amazon, right? Our generation did that. Our next generation is going to do crypto and Web3. My sons are already browsing and telling me which NFT is sold, which NFT is bought. Amitabh Bachchan ka nikal gaya, uska aa gaya. I'm lost, right? I follow technology on a daily basis. That's my business. But they are the ones, it's so natural for them. You don't have to teach them Web3. So they are the ones in next he's in 10th class. In next 5 years, he'll be in the market, he'll be searching for a job, or he'll be creating something of his own. He's the one who's going to drive the Web3 revolution in India and abroad. Right? So it is very imperative for all the enterprises to understand that this Web3 cannot be ignored because of the very simple reason that the next generation of customers will ask for it. And they have to get ready. Right? But again, points to the fact, what are you trying to solve? Are you trying to solve a Web3 POC, or are you really solving a problem for them? And then if you see that that use case is a good fit for Web3, I don't see why people will say no to it. I mean, governments have said yes to it. I mean, tell me one technology where government has been the first adopter. It has always been the last adopter globally. Private sector has been the first adopter. But this is one place where government is taking a front foot. In fact, public sector is the fastest growing blockchain area in India. There are data points on that, right? Hope that answers your question.
DigiYatra is from now from Tata, not in public. So we started the evaluation already. So Ravi, Arpit, Dohra, everybody knows me. I am Jayjit Biswas from Elite Web3 Forum. So even
Thank you for giving that gift to us. I think that is a really great value add for the entire aviation industry. And I'm proud that I'm sitting with somebody and Arpit and you.
More to come. The question I tried to ask Varun, because I interacted with Anup from Wipro also. He is in our community also. How the Web 1, Web 2 player are also jumping to Web 3 bandwagon, along where these young developers see, and these are the rivers coming from Web 2. How this convergence will match developers, individual developers versus Apple, if Apple comes into Web 3 or NFT, or Meta already started, but Meta failed or not, that is huge history or future, you can say. So what is your take about how Web 1, Web 2 player converge with these young guys in the way where Web 3 is in their bloods, in their Gen Z category?
Completely agree with you. And let me ask you a question if in return, right? Why do you think Web3 concept came into picture? It came into picture, I think, by Gavin, who wrote his white paper when he was in his Ethereum days, where he felt that today internet is centralized around one or few big brands.
To me, Web3 is freedom. I want freedom.
So that is another problem. Web3 has many definitions, but I would trust the person who coined that first. And he said, see, and you're right. Freedom from what?
Freedom from centralization.
Why?
Because all the data and all the data
Exactly.
reside in those companies itself. I don't want
Exactly.
to get my data to those people.
Exactly. So that is the reason why Web3 concept came into picture, where they wanted to move away from few large brands. Now, in this question, you're asking me what happens if those few large brands try to get into Web3. Understand, they will lose their sole reason of existence. Right? I don't want to it won't be okay for me to call out names on the stage, but look at it. What is their business model? They are thriving on your private data. So tell me one thing, how do they have an advantage apart from money? How do they have advantage in a decentralized web? I don't think so they have an advantage. Right? They don't. They don't have an advantage. So that is the point I am very excited about. All these developers sitting here, when it comes to Web3, they are at par with the best of the best brands globally. Because there are investors sitting out there who are ready to fund their ideas if they have a great idea. Money is no longer a problem in Web3, right? And the so-called big brands that we are talking about, they are the reasons why Web3 concept came in, right? So I don't think they will have a significant advantage. Time will tell, but that's my point of view. Any more questions? Just one last.
Hello. Hello. Yeah. My name is Sumed, and my question is a little on the holistic scale of things. As you know, there's a war going on, and you know, the US dollar, the currency thing is going on, right, around China, India, Russia, and all of that. So is this kind of an opportunity and an hindrance to the crypto adoption that's going on? Because the currency situation around the world itself is a little shaky right now.
I think I'm not I'm a technical guy here, I'm not an economist. But look, we always had war somewhere in the world, right? As I said, innovation will find its way, right? I mean, they will find its way. And yeah, probably somebody from economics background will be able to answer the dynamics between currencies and cryptos. But I think you cannot really, while we all talk about Web3, you cannot isolate crypto with Web3, a very integral part, because these crypto so-called are nothing but tokens. In technology, we call them as tokens, and that is how you incentivate the network in your Web3, right? So you cannot separate them out. But at the same time, we have unique problems right here in India, right? People want to get rich overnight, right? So government has to be responsible till the time they figure out a concrete solution for it. Otherwise, people will come back and say, you know, government didn't do anything, we got robbed, right? Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I think we are out of time. And it was lovely talking to all of you. Hoping to interact with you.
I feel like that bad timekeeper who's keeping all of you from the good conversation. But Varun, thank you so much. I just had one quick announcement to make. We are telecasting this event live, so if somebody is moving out of the room, please just avoid the cameras. You can see a lot of them, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so when you're moving out, just ensure that you're not moving from in front of them. Thank you. Now I want to take a moment to thank the audience of Pune, who have continuously shown their enthusiasm towards the new age of internet that is being brought about by Web3 community in India. And today here at Namaste Web3, we have an incredible lineup of panelists and presenters who are going to take you on a journey of Web3. We have for you 2 panel discussions with industry leaders who will deep dive into the world of Web3, followed by a fiery fireside chat. But before we move to our first panel, I want to bring to your notice the kiosks that have been put outside. They are set up outside from the house of CoinDCX, Octo. So if you want to explore the world of DeFi, then you must visit these kiosks which are right outside. Also, if you want to be part of the CoinDCX workforce, don't forget to interact with the talent team at the kiosks outside. Now, moving on, it is time for the first panel of the day. Web2 limitations opening new doors for Web3, a catalyst for innovation and collaboration. As many of you know, Web2, the current version of the internet, has revolutionized the way we interact and communicate online. However, it has limitations that impede innovation and collaboration. Web3's, the next version of the web, is poised to address these limitations and open new doors for a more decentralized and collaborative online world. Now, to moderate this session, may I request CNBC TV 18's Manisha Gupta to come on stage. May I also take the opportunity to invite the panelists for this session. Arpit Sharma, Managing Director, India, Southeast Asia and Middle East NEAR Foundation. He has a track record in enterprise adoption and business development in the Asia Pacific and Middle East regions. He's passionate about bringing Web3 solutions like Metaverse, NFTs, CBDC and stablecoins to the masses. We also have Firdaus Sheikh, co-founder and CEO Drive. She is a visionary entrepreneur with a strong background in business strategy, technology and finance. Ravikant Agrawal, Director of Growth, Polygon. He primarily works towards key initiatives, Web3, mobile strategy, mergers, acquisitions, NFT and identity ecosystem growth. And Gaurav Arora, SVP, DeFi Initiatives, CoinDCX. He leads the company's newly launched decentralized finance vertical and CoinDCX Pro app. And he's responsible for developing strategies and products to accelerate the adoption of decentralized blockchain economy for mass market consumers. The panel's all yours, Manisha, and the guests.
Mugdha, thank you so much for that. The Yash's masterclass and then Varun really took the conversation to greater heights, and so many questions were talked about and answered as well. You know, when you talk about Web3, we've seen school kids do it. There are summer camps being run on this now, and you have youngsters trying to learn as many as tech languages as they can. So that is the kind of enthusiasm that we have seen in the country as of now. Well, of course, there has been some talent drain as well. We've seen some companies which were launched here move out, and some regulatory conversations as we speak right now also are going on. And very rightly, as Varun pointed out, there is just so much happening right now. I know I was interacting with Sandeep Nailwal some time back, and he said, you really have to read, and you have to read like 12, 16, 18 hours a day. I mean, do you guys do that? Not anymore. Yeah, because, you know, every year that you see, the last 3 or 4, 1 year you had cryptocurrencies, and then everybody started talking about DeFi and the kind of returns it could give to you, and NFTs, and then Metaverse came about, and now every conversation is about Web3. So that really is going to be about my opening statement that I would request my guests with. We already have heard so much from Varun. Thank you so much. That was really a context setting that you did. But Arpit, I'll start with you. And what do you think, where does Web3 stand as of now?
Yeah, so it's a very, very interesting space where we are right now, right? So a lot of people have a good understanding of, not a good understanding, I would say somewhat of understanding of what Web3 is, right? So we always hear these definitions that Web3 is the next iteration of internet, right? It's a very broad brush with which a lot of people paint, and I also do that, right? So we do have some sense of what this thing is, right? But it is still very abstract. It is still very abstract, right? So that's the very interesting thing. And also as Varun mentioned, that this is incomplete, right? So we have a sense where we are going, and that sense is, okay, this is something decentralized, this is something where communities get empowered, where creators can earn more, right? So we have that sense of direction, but still it's very fudgy right now. So which is a very interesting place to be. Why is that interesting? Is because it leaves so much to be done. It has possibilities, right? It is like a seed which can grow into anything, right? So I see that, I feel it's a very interesting space in terms of how it is being defined. Secondly, we are at the cusp of great opportunity, and I'll talk in terms like in the context of India, right? So we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of engineers pass out every year, right? And then we have a lot of technology professionals, right? So
how many developers do we have in India right now?
I don't have that number right now, but I know that there are
75,000
that is not the number of developers. That is the number of developers with Web3 skills.
Okay.
So this was a number published by NASSCOM. Yeah, this was a number published by NASSCOM. Yeah, this is the developers with Web3 skill set, right? So, but number of developers is way, way bigger than that right now. So there is a huge pool to be tapped into. But what is very interesting about this is, and we have seen that in the past technology waves, that India almost always catches a falling wave and ends up being a service kind of a economy where we just capture a very small part of value. This time it is different. We are catching this wave, when it is rising. So I see a lot of potential in that, and I'm very, very optimistic that we are going to make big here.
So Ravi, when we look at the wave, is it infancy? Is it a toddler? How would you age it? I mean, put the age to it.
I think again, going to be a little difficult to put an age, but I would say that it is at a very, appropriate stage where it's going to be running very soon. That's where we are. Primarily the kind of composability that we are sensing. There are a lot of Lego pieces that are now getting built. When those Lego pieces coming together, we would be able to see faster go-to-market for very, very innovative solutions coming out. And that is very different from, last few years where we have been, talking about more paperware, but now I think we are seeing more tangible solutions coming out. So all those, innovation that has gone in since last few years, those Lego pieces are going to be making it far more easier for the developers sitting out here in order to combine them and quickly start shipping up some more interesting, viable use cases.
All right. Gaurav, your opening comments on this?
No, I was just thinking of the question you asked him. I think if I were to put where we are, I think we are at the inception of the Big Bang. I think the Big Bang has just started. It's going to, accelerate at a faster pace, and there'll be like many, many large planets and suns and everything that'll come out of it, definitely. And each of them will, reflect a very different area of innovation. So, like right now, we have visibility into finance. But, there'll be something in gaming, and there'll be something in, travel. And I heard of very interesting use cases. So we don't even know of the use cases that will come out of it. But like I said, what's exciting is that the Big Bang has started. And we are right at the beginning of it. We have the opportunity. We have the manpower in India. We have, I think we are very well placed for a lot of reasons as a country to kind of take advantage of it. So just super exciting to be here at the kind of the cusp of it.
All right. Firdaus, I'll want your opening comments as well before we delve deeper into this. But where do you think Web3 stands right now? And so much has been spoken about, and we do understand there are challenges onto this too. But from where we are, how are you gazing into the crystal ball?
I guess for me it's also about, it's a technological upgrade. There's a decade of Web 2 that we have seen, and from here what we are talking about Web 3 is, it's basically an upgrade to what technology was able to do till date and how we are going ahead from here. And it's all about, we spoke about transparency of freedom or your ownership on what belongs to me. I should have a say. And people don't understand the concept of freedom unless and until it was about independence. It hurt us when we were controlled by someone. We don't understand this with our own data and, our own privacy at this point of time. The day people start realizing it, and that's when we see a huge difference that will happen in the industry as a whole.
Let's dwell into each one of yours experience and knowledge as well. And Firdaus, let me start with you. What are you doing right now into Web3? What are the challenges that you have experienced?
I run a company called Drive. Drive is like Uber on blockchain, and in the Web3 space, this is a use case that has been spoken about so many times, like imagine Uber on blockchain. But why do you have to imagine Uber on blockchain is the first and the most important question. And that's where, the whole problem statement of be it Uber, Ola, or any other ride-hailing company that exists today work on a very fundamental that it is centralized. It is controlled by a centralized company who control both drivers and riders in this ecosystem. We all are aware of situation where driver keeps telling us about, okay, there's a huge commission that we pay, they cancel your ride. Now, these are the very basic problem that centralization has created, where both drivers and riders feel control. They feel they're stuck in this vicious circle because we don't have any other way out. And that's what Drive is about, where we connect driver and riders directly with each other without we controlling, be it the fare that you're paying to the driver or the commission. So we don't charge any commission from drivers, making sure not only they share value among themselves, but also share reward among themselves. Now, obviously, because it's a huge industry and, which is obviously manipulated and controlled by the biggest player that we know, we are still able to make a place for a very reason of how we are different and how we are solving the problem that is they call, so-called disruption we call, it was a technological disruption which has also created their own problem, and I guess that's what Web3 for any other problem statement that you see is solving is the gap that Web2 has created.
Well, very well said, because as Varun also pointed out, aviation, power and some other sectors already have adopted that. Land records is another thing. This one is with you, Arpit. Near, how do you see it working? What products do you have? What projects are you looking forward to?
So for us, it's very, what is very important is how do we bring real Web2 users, let's say, or mainstream users to Web3, right? So Web3 has a very niche user set right now, which are called, let's say, Web3 natives, degens sometime, right? So what the view that we have is, what can we do to bring masses to Web3? So that's the problem that we are solving for. Now there is only pretty much one answer to that, and that is how can we simplify all of this and then simplify it some more, right? At multiple levels. For example, I always think of a Web3 app, and I think of the mom test. Can my mom do this on her own without actually me standing over her head and telling her how to do it, right? So unless and until we simplify these applications to that level, it is not going to happen. So what we are doing is we are working with leading Web2 products, right? For example, there is a amazing product called Sweatcoin. It's you walk and you earn points and then you earn tokens, right? So the user, even for a very, when they start using the application, they don't even know that they're interacting with something called as Web3, which has a wallet, which has custodial wallet and non-custodial. They don't know, they don't care. They just walk, they earn points and they're happy. And eventually you take them from that journey where they start with a familiar Web2 app, very familiar experience, and then take them to that overall, Web3 ecosystem where they understand what is the value that Web3 is creating. That's one. Secondly, simplifying this for business decision makers, right? So this is the most beautiful thing and the challenging thing at the same time for Web3 is that all the conversations start with technology, zero knowledge, sharding, this, that, scalability. The reality is this is under the hood, right? It is not for a business decision maker. What is important is what is the problem it is solving. If we are not able to lead from that business side of things, it is not going to, we are basically creating entry barriers, scaring people off, that this is something which is very difficult to do, right? So we have to simplify the language that we speak. So, just to summarize, simplify the user experience, create seamless user experience, and overall simplify the communication. How do you communicate with your end users, your decision makers, developers, etc.?
All right, so solving problems and making it easy. So one thing I have against Varun is when he started talking about Digi Yatra, he said, I'm a geek is the reason I read the FAQs. Are the geeks only ones that read FAQs? And as Arpit said, do you think it really is important? I'm sure it is important to make it user-friendly. It shouldn't scare people off, right? Otherwise, you'll have so many developers and no users.
100%. Yeah, I think, as an industry, we would fail if we are, after 5 years, still talking about blockchain, right? I think it has to become an invisible layer. It has to be so smooth that the user, without knowing that they are interacting with the technology, they should be still able to do what they like to do, right? That is something that, at Polygon, we are very, very aggressively thriving for, where for us, the users are the developers, right? And how can we improve that user experience from a developer standpoint? And that is exactly where we are trying to see, how can we make it easy for the developers so that they can have multiple choices across the type of solutions or the use cases that they wanted to address. And then they pass it on the simplicity back to the user so that their experience of, interacting with the system is super easy. And I think we have been seeing that result where, taking an example of Reddit, for example, without talking about anything related to Web3, anything related to NFT, they got 10.6 billion collectibles. One of the great case study where the users are absolutely zero aware about they are interacting with anything to do with Web3 or NFTs. But that's a brilliant case study.
So as Polygon, how are you approaching Web3 as of now? What sectors, what is the product like? Where are you headed right now?
Yeah, I think the entire vision for Polygon is scalability, right? So, back in 2017 when we started as Matic Network, the idea is a cat game should not be choking up the entire Ethereum network, right? With that approach in mind, how can we bring Web3 to the masses with so many great potential that this technology offer? It has to be scalable so that it reaches out to every human being, and we would be able to cater to the likes of Facebook, Meta, Stripes, right? I think where they are talking about billions of transactions. How can we bring that kind of a scalability? So with that idea in mind, I think there had been an always vision in terms of providing different levels of scalability. And it could be, with the help of the initial one, which we say is the proof of stake. But then now I think switching gear as the technology matured from when it has started back in 2017 to now, where we are using, whether you wanted to have an app chain for your own application to scale it up, or you wanted to use zero knowledge technology in order to have the ZK rollups. And alongside that, we are also creating certain components that make the entire ecosystem more interesting and the application go faster, go to market. So for example, for developers creating frameworks like Finity, or, bringing in that kind of a mobile strategy in place so that again, we can capture in the users which are not willing to go onto web for interacting with an application, right? How many of us today actually go onto web to make a banking transaction, right? Most of us wanted to have that on a mobile experience. How can we bring that kind of a mobile experience for Web3 users? I think that is another area where we are focusing a lot, including digital identity, which is another solution under the Polygon umbrella, and we are sensing, great use cases coming out for that as well.
All right. Let me get into decentralization itself. And while we do understand the advantages, we want to be free. As somebody from the audience said, is the reason we have decentralization. Gaurav, bring it in about the advantages, and let's dwell a bit onto the disadvantages here as well.
Sure. Yeah. So I know the party line is I'm supposed to say that everything centralized is bad and everything decentralized is good because, that's what we're here for, and that's what my title also says. But, I think the truth is always kind of somewhere in the middle. I think there are some things that centralized does really well, and there are something decentralized does really well. And to elaborate that, I was reading something very interesting yesterday. It was a totally different sphere. It was evolution, and it was basically, it said that evolution is actually two processes. There is the process of a genetic shift, there's a huge change in our genes, and there is natural selection where things keep on incrementally improving. I think innovation is also kind of like that, and centralized and decentralized have their own roles to play here. Some things are done really well in a centralized manner, something like developing large LLM models like OpenAI or going to Mars. But there are something that decentralized does really, really well. I think, Varun talked a lot about the virtues of decentralization. But two things I am personally really excited about, which I think, will really change is composability. And there's the concept of new economic models. So let me just talk about why I think decentralized are best to operate in those spheres. Composability is really, we've heard the Lego block model, right? So imagine you had this one large company, let's call it Headbook, which does some things really well. It's got a lot of pieces in it, but only it can access all of those pieces. Imagine if all of them were just Lego blocks. You could take out 4 of them, plug in something else from another company, say Google, and, correct them and make a completely different, company and a product, which you could start using with the user's data, which is also a Lego block. They can connect to it. So the idea is that, with decentralization, anybody can just pick up these Lego blocks and start creating new things, which really excites me because, again, with evolution, the more options you have, the more failures you have, the more the chances of a really amazing success. That composability for me is super exciting about the whole decentralized space, because it gives every one of these people the ability to just create a really awesome product. The other thing that really excites me about this whole decentralized space is and Web3 is the new economic models. I think we're just completely going to turn the way capitalism runs, economics runs on its head, and like they're already, we don't even know how it's going to evolve, and but there are two. Let me look at a bottoms up and a top down approach of how I think they're happening. A bottoms up approach could be that, hey, I as a user have my data. I can go connect it to anybody and say, hey, now you pay me for this data. I'm giving you access to data. start paying me for it. So companies have to now innovate and find out new economic models of how they should be incentivizing users. And the the top-down approach could be, something like a Drive, or any other company where they want to set up a huge network. They could start incentivizing users by tokens instead of cash. It could help them bootstrap large networks. So everywhere, I think there are just very exciting economic models. So between the composability and the economic models, I think we are going to see amazing amount of innovation there.
Clearly. A lot of innovation, a lot of collaborations is something that we require. So I want to go again to my panel here, and I'll start with you, Firdosh. There are challenges here as well, and we all seem to be talking about that too. So what is that one big challenge that you see when it comes to Web3? Also, we usually say that you should be looking for solutions, but in this business, as Varun also said, you have to look for a problem and then give a problem solution to the company. That is where the whole technology would come into picture. What is the challenge, and how would you look or approach a business?
So because, I don't come from this space, I'm a chartered accountant by profession. And for me, this journey actually started with my own problem where my driver asked me, cancel the trip, I'll take you to the airport, pay me $100 less. And that led me to actually explore blockchain as a technology and get to know about what it actually is. So my journey actually started with problem. Now, I guess the biggest challenge that we as industry face, and I guess now every one of us also spoke about the same thing, that people are trying to build a lot of things around only crypto. Most of the use cases that we see are built for crypto. Now we need to understand the crypto audience is still very small. If you keep building for the same audience, after 5 years we will be still speaking about how mass adoption or how billion users will come to Web3. So I guess looking for problem statement is what everybody talk about, but it's not like tomorrow go out and start looking for a problem statement. I guess anybody who has built anything which solves problem, it's a personal story. And, I guess we specifically, Indians, someone who live with a lot of problems, we face a lot of problem in our day-to-day life, more than anyone else. And if you start looking to solve that problem, I guess for a lot of problem, there is a solution. And Web3 do provide a lot of solution. Just to start with, how you can bootstrap with tokenizing the whole network effect and bring more audience to just start using something that you're trying to build. So I guess the biggest challenge is stop building just for crypto. And if we start doing that and build things that really matter, build things that will become part of day-to-day life of people. It's an underlying technology and it has to stay there. So that whole realization is very important, and I guess that's why we all are sitting here also, to make people realize that Web3 is beyond crypto.
It clearly is, and that is something that we've been talking about for a very long time now. But Arpit, what is the challenge that you see that we should be preempting right now, and how would you want to tackle this?
So I think I would build on that point, right? So we really have to understand, right? So right now, on use cases, right? So I saw a very funny picture where somebody was using their MacBook as a door, stopper. So they will open the door, they will put a MacBook there. Yes. Can the MacBook do that? Yes, it can do that. But is it what it is built to do? No, it's not built for that purpose, right? So we have to save ourselves from a confirmation bias. Okay. First thing that everybody should be aware of is that once you have a hammer, right, everything looks like a nail. You should not fall into that trap. Web3 is a technology, very impatiently we have to understand what is it that it solves, what is it that it doesn't, right? So I talk to a lot of enterprise clients, and the first question that we have to ask is, does this really require Web3? Okay, it's not. So we have to, again, we have to get out from that clan-like mindset, Web2 versus Web3. There is no Web2 versus Web3. It cannot be. It cannot happen, right? At the end of the day, it is Web2 getting improved in some way, getting some new features, moving into a different kind of, getting some new upgrades, whatever, right? So it's not versus. The versus mindset is very bad. We have to get rid of that. So first of all, find real problems to solve. Second, get out of that versus mindset and start building on top of what already is there. So there are so many amazing applications that are out there. So we have to think incrementally also. So there is a disruptive way that we are solving things, but there are a lot of incremental changes that you can do to make things way, way better. For example, let's say the way medical records are handled today, right? Or for example, let's say the way your browser cookies are handled. what Brave did was with basic attention tokens, right? So basically running using the same applications which are there, which are catering to millions of people, bringing what is best in Web3 to those applications to create a positive impact on that user base, right? So we have to get into that assimilative stage rather than that client mindset, right? And then third piece is, at this point, again, I'll go back to my previous point, right? So we have to de-jargonize it, we have to simplify it, we have to make it more, solution-oriented rather than tech-oriented. So I feel, these are the three problems and these are the three things that we need to be doing slightly differently than what we are doing right now.
I'll come to you with an example. A big jewelry company recently put their jewelry in a metaverse. Then I had a conversation with various other jewelers as well, and they're like, they can do that. They are huge, they are big. So even if they put money and it goes down the drain, that's okay. We wouldn't want to spend that kind of money. What is it there to learn from this case study?
So I look at this case study in two different ways. Okay, first of all, why will a jewelry store or jewelry brand do that, right? So if you look at these big companies, right? So there are two parts. So there is a core to their business. Okay, right now all the enterprise clients, they are in the mode of kind of exploring what this Web3 is, and they are doing these use cases which I call peripheral use cases. They are like easy and harmless way to actually explore this, okay, without threatening their core. So that's one way of looking at it. Secondly, coming to a point, right? So I feel a deeper question has to be asked. Like, is it an immersive experience putting it as a shop front? Is it what you really want to do? Or is it the only thing that you want to do? Or do you want to go deeper and say, with this jewelry, there is a, get it to a phygital kind of a thing.
Or is it just FOMO?
Yeah, so FOMO, I would say, yeah, FOMO is big, right?
It's not just this company. There's a diamond company I know of. There's a tire company I know of. You can buy it online and then you will get tire delivered to your, there's just so much that the Indian companies seem to be experimenting with.
Yeah, so I would not say this is FOMO. This is for me, this is very well thought out way of experimenting with a disruptive technology, right? So if you don't do this right now, we may look at these superficial use cases and feel that, maybe this is not adding that much value to the business, which is right. In a lot of cases, it will be right. You can actually make do with a normal e-commerce website, right? But right now, the point is not that. Point is, how will you get ready for that Web3 when it comes in full force, right? So these companies which are taking these incremental steps like getting into metaverse, setting up space, so they are kind of warming up for what is to come. Okay, why I say that? Like today, the generation of let's say 12 to 18 or whatever, 12 to 22, what I feel is that they are Web3 natives, right? So they go on Sandbox, they play in Decentraland, they have communities there, they don't want to go outside, right? So they are Web3 natives. The way these people consume information is very different from the way that we consume information. And if these companies, like these diamond companies, these jewelry companies, they have to stay relevant to this new customer segment that is Web3 native, they have to be in the space where these guys are, right? And to do that, it is not you can leapfrog it, but you have to incrementally build up your capacities, you have to incrementally build team, you have to incrementally, for example, today, there is no budget for any blockchain or metaverse or anything, right? So you have to build towards that. So I think these are the small steps that these companies are taking to prepare themselves for this Web3 mainstream adoption that will come very soon. Like it's not that it will be in a decade or so. It is already there. It will grow very fast. So I think these companies are just warming up for that, and I think it's a good step.
Clearly. Ravi, I'll just take over from what he said and put it in a different way to you. What the companies also do not like is the way it surges and then stops, and then there is no regulatory clarity, and then it surges suddenly again. It is that, run, pause, it what really bothers Indians right now.
Yeah, I think to a certain degree, yes. But I think there are ways to, look into that. So primarily, if there are solutions which are similar to Me Too kind of solutions, right? That doesn't give them a comfort that where is that leading to? What kind of innovations are going to be after this, right? So I think this is something that, Sandeep, co-founder of Polygon, keeps saying that instead of making the Me Too solution, how can we again join those Lego pieces, bring something which is more innovative for the next stage of innovations? And that's where, people who are venturing into that, they would feel confident about getting into it and not taking a step back. I take an example. So, if we talk about the traditional way of advertisement, there used to be, era where we talk about cost per mile, CPM, that is via the newspaper, of how far you can make sure that your newspaper landed so that your advertisement goes through. Then came the era where Google came in, and that's where cost per click came in. Then we had the era where cost per click has been moved to the cost per download. And then there was a cost to action, right? Now we need to bring out a next level of innovation. How can Web3 further facilitate? Can we bring something like cost per value, right? So it is taking to a next stage, and that brings the attention of the, the people who are actually going to be consuming it, saying, yes, there is a value. There is an incremental change in the way we have been thinking about this technology that can bring in, right? So if I make a transaction, then I am only spending that money, and then I am passing on the commission to the people or to the party that is providing a solution, which is not possible today, right? So that incremental change by bringing in all the Lego pieces, I think that's very crucial.
All right. Gaurav, this one is to you. So we do understand that there is, still regulatory aspect remaining to this one. How do you look at the overall experience of Web3 as we see it right now, the kind of spend that there is, the kind of fund investment that we've seen coming in? I do understand when we talk to this sector, community is a big thing. You guys meet, you guys talk formally, informally, you guys are together into this, even when it comes to being a VC here. How are you looking at regulatory aspect clarity coming in for this? And do you think that would be a major push here?
No, absolutely. I think if you ask me, one of the main things is holding Web3 back is regulatory clarity. I think it's almost like we've been playing with play money so far. I mean, we're what, less than $1 trillion. The real world is in hundreds of trillions of dollars. None of us have actually touched that space really. And the reason for not being able to touch is because there is no regulatory clarity. And, those large companies, those large assets, they are not coming into the space. I think the way I see regulatory, and, I think everybody's still evolving on how they're thinking about it, but I think there are boundaries between the real world and the crypto world is what regulators need to do best. They need to regulate how money comes in, how money goes out. They need to regulate, hey, if somebody is issuing a real estate lease or if somebody is issuing an identity, those should be regulated. But inside this area, they should let the evolution take place and the transactions take place. So I'm pretty sure the regulation will come, because the innovation is coming and the regulation will come to safeguard people. And when it does come, this 1 trillion, will just massively go, because it's like, principles of physics. You connect a low potential and high potential, immediately you'll have a current flow. So we're all waiting for that moment, but I'm optimistic it'll come sooner than later.
I need a one-word answer now. What sector do you think, Firdosh, is absolutely ready, set for Web3?
I'll take my own sector's name then. I guess mobility always has been said is the second best use case after financial sector to decentralize, like how Bitcoin did to the financial system. There's so much that can be done in the mobile. Anything that moves can be decentralized. Okay. And, that's also the bigger vision that we have. So for me, it's mobility.
Entertainment.
How?
So, okay, so you said one word, so
I just got intrigued into that.
Okay. So I think entertainment is a sector which has always been because this is a sector which lives on people consuming their whatever they produce, right? So if you look at how entertainment is evolving, right? So lately, if you have noticed, like Netflix is pushing games on their platform, etc., right? So now what is happening is, with this metaverse and immersive technologies coming up, and token gating things happening, and IP rights, etc., which can be tokenized as NFTs. So I feel that there is immediate value unlock for entertainment sector.
I think I would vote for gaming, and I
knew that.
Yeah, we are experiencing a huge surge in terms of gaming. I mean, it is changing the paradigm in terms of the way people used to do the gaming earlier. So, for example, let's say if I got 500 rupees and I go and do something with the game, I actually get my 500 locked in there. Right now, what we are enabling is primarily I spend that money, play there, make some assets, then at the end of the time where I wanted to switch gear, I sell those assets, go into a next game, bring my 500 back and play a second game, right? So I think tokenizations, bringing in the assets, interoperability, I think that's going to be exploding, and gaming is a sector which is adopting it at a huge pace.
I'm personally the most excited about identity, and for two reasons. One, I think it's not a choice anymore. I think with this whole massive growth in AI, by the end of this year, the proof of human, like having to prove that you are a real person who has created this video or you've posted this, is going to be a real problem. And I think the best way to solve is identity. So it's a need. It's not even whether we're ready for it, we'll have to adopt it. I think the second big point is I think identity enables all of this. Once an identity is not a person, it's not your KYC, it's a person, place, thing. Right? Once you have all of those identities on the blockchain, I think it just makes all of this very easier. Right? Identity with avatars, you can go into one game, take it to another game. So every identity with the entertainment, you can take your history. So there's a lot of things that it enables. So identity is, I think, the biggest thing for blockchain.
Ravi, I'll give you one quick final question here. So, we saw ChatGPT come, and we immediately saw two more platforms come with a similar kind of a product. Do you see that as a concern here? Too many people, too many builders start to do the same thing.
I think good and bad in a way. So first of all, we are waiting for that ChatGPT movement in Web3. We need that kind of a aha application where, we get that kind of a spike in terms of adoption. But I think it's good in a way because we need that competition for innovation. It cannot be just one player leading the market too long. Otherwise, the innovation subsidized there, right? So I think we need that kind of a competition. I think with the competition, it has to be a healthy competition, and that is where the ethos of Web3 comes in, which makes it open source, composable. So you build in 5 Lego blocks, and somebody else uses those 5 and build the 6th and 7th, and incrementally you get the value add of it.
All right. With that, we're almost at the end of this conversation, but we invite couple of questions is what we can take right now. So if anybody has something to say, now is the time. Nothing? All right. With that, thank you so much, panelists, for being here, and thank you so much for this conversation. You have something? Okay. Can we please pass the mic to her?
My name is Neha and I come from a legal industry. So my questions are mostly related to accountability and regulation. As you asked Gaurav sir about regulation, I'm very curious about how the innovators and tech-savvy people had faced some important regulatory issues when they were developing their ideas or application. It's an open question to everyone.
I can try it. So I think there is always a citizen first approach that a regulator would take, right? They need to think holistically. They cannot just be focused on one dimension. They need to ensure that the rights, the kind of consumer protection that should be there. So they think, pretty much from all the angles. Now, what we are sensing, at least from a Web3 perspective, if that's where your question is going, we are sensing that there is incremental efforts being made by the regulators as well, where they are, coming onto a table, they are discussing with the community, they are discussing with the innovators, they are discussing with the startups in order to, hear them out and then frame the guidelines, which actually works cohesively across the ecosystem, right? So there are efforts being made in terms of incrementally ensuring that they are not dampening the innovation, but at the same time, they are taking cautious steps in order to ensure the rights and, there is no hampering being done to the citizens' rights.
I just want to add, right, see, a regulator has no competition, right, unlike all of us who have competition. So a regulator has no incentive to act first. A lot of times they need to act last and they need to be right. So they will always take their time in understanding the space, and then when they finally act, they act for the good of everyone. They have very less chance of mistakes. So I think that's what they're doing right now. They're understanding all of this space. But if I was a regulator, I would be super excited by, blockchain and code, because code can't make mistakes. Humans make mistakes. So they can enforce all their rules immediately. So I think it's a matter of when they understand how to use this technology, they will definitely adopt it.
All right. With that, thank you, panelists, so much for joining, and thank you for that very enlightening conversation. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
everyone.
Well, a big round of applause for all the panelists. And before we move ahead, just wanted to quickly welcome Mr. Dilip Chanoy, who has recently been appointed as the first chairman of Bharat Web3 Association. Thank you so much for being here, sir. Thank you. And now it's time for a fireside chat session. The topic for the chat is accelerating Web3 adoption, taking Web3 to the masses. Now, accelerating Web3 adoption and taking it to the masses will require a concerted effort from the entire ecosystem, including developers, entrepreneurs, investors, and even regulators. Despite the potential of Web3, adoption has been slow and many people are still unfamiliar with the technology. To moderate this session, may I welcome again to the stage Mr. Ravi Kant Agrawal, Director of Growth, Polygon, and to join him here, Manisha. If we can have both of you again.
Fireside. So let's tackle some things that we didn't in the previous session then.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So, we'll of course take questions as well, but we'll want to make it quick and let's understand. My first question to you is, what does Web3 promise? What does it hold for us as citizens, as students, as builders, as the economy, overall stakeholders?
Sure. So I think the first thing that Web3 promises is ownership. It is the ownership about your data, about your ID, about your assets, right? So all kind of ownership, I control it. I ensure that how much I want to send, to whom I want to send, what time I want to send, and that is where the sense of ownership is the first promise. The second one is decentralization. So it's something where, if I'm making a transaction, it's not being gatekept by anybody, and that transaction is still transparent. It's ensuring that there is a security associated to it and the transaction went through. And the third, and which is my favorite, is the programmability of the assets, right? So we have all kind of assets that we can bring into the ecosystem. You can have your energy bond, you could have your collectibles, you can have your art, your music, you can have the financial assets. Everything can be brought in here, and that's where we could see that there could be actually a new economy that we can generate using the programmability aspect of Web3. So that's another promise.
So are these promises good? Are these promises tall? Which is the right word you'll use here? And if there are so many promises and you only talked about the positives, why is the adoption so slow?
Yeah, I think this is a very expected question whenever we talk about Web3. So I think the very first and the obvious one that we have discussed in the previous panel is about the usability, right? The user experience. So maybe a question to the audience, how many of you keep making a crypto transactions? Yeah, quite a few, right? How many of you actually think at least twice before making a transaction? Right?
Just
you
twice?
See that even, I feel that that's like close to 100%, right? We don't do this when I'm making my transaction using my bank account. I don't think twice when I'm making that transaction using Google Pay. But I still do that twice, thrice, 4 times when I'm making a crypto transaction. That user experience still not so convincing that users are getting very used to it, right? That's the primary thing. I believe user experience has to be made much, much more sleeker. The second is about scalability, right? So we are very, very gung-ho about Web3. But I think even if I talk about the recent stage, across any blockchain ecosystem, we cannot handle the volume for the likes of Facebook. We cannot handle the transaction volume for the likes of DTCC, Euroclear, right? Billions of transactions. I think the scalability aspect hasn't reached to that kind of a maturity level. And that's where, the tech maturity has to reach to that stage where we are seeing the use cases which require that kind of a scalability. And shameless plug, but Polygon ZK is something that we are working in terms of addressing this one. And the third one, which we again discussed in the last one, is the regulatory uncertainty, right? With the crypto narrative, I think the kind of a narrative that has gone out hasn't been encouraged in the in the audience, right? I mean, people still try to hear those noisy things first instead of the technology and the merits of it. And that kind of a narrative has actually been defending many people. I mean, we have seen scenario where parents have been telling to their kids not to join a crypto company. There's something, flashy out there and people should not be, venturing into that side. So I think that kind of a narrative is another, dampening reasons. But yeah, those are my challenges that I'm seeing.
There's a huge potential, of course, when we talk about Web3. We've discussed that in the previous panel as well, but where do you see a want of Web3 and the inability to reach there?
Yeah, I think the inability is again, driven by certain use cases which are not maturing, I would say. But then there are very interesting areas that are happening. So if I need to start with a couple of examples, for example, let's say NFTs, right? I think we are at a very interesting stage where we are talking about NFTs for your music, your art, collectibles, right? I think how can you translate that into something which is like a digital assets? And the example that I was talking about Reddit, which is 10.6 million users making money of 75 million. I think a great case study is in terms of what can it be done with the help of, something called as a digital assets. But then I think it opens up a door for many, many more innovations, translating the real world assets into something more of a digital world assets and then controlling yourself, right? The second one that I would say again from a gaming point that I made last time, right? I think again from a gamer perspective, this is again a very interesting era where they just don't play and spend and reach to a level 5, but then I can take my level 5 credibility. So that tomorrow if this game is launching a new game, they look out for all those level 5 gamers and they bring them as the first tester, or they may reward them, or they may let them bring their top of the guns into the new game, right? I think that kind of innovation is going to be very, very important, and that's where we are sensing that gaming is going to be again picking it up from a perspective where, very aggressively we are seeing that the Web2 traditional gaming studios have started venturing into Web3. The next one that I am particularly feeling excited about is the online content creations. I think all of us spend, at least 4 to 6 hours every day using our phone, and we generate a lot of content, every type of content, whether it is clicking a picture, recording a video, sending a message, all of this digital content. Is there a way where we can monetize this content, right? At the moment, it is, up to the mercy of the large platforms. They have been ruling about what can be done, but there are innovative models and there are startups which are building really innovative things where we can generate those content and then decide in terms of what kind of monetization model would suit me. Whether I should be selling those content on this platform 1 or 2, or maybe whether I am getting rewarded by selling it by myself to the community that belongs to me. So I think very interesting time.
Absolutely. I also want to talk about earn while you game. What is that line that you use?
It's play to earn.
Play to earn, yes, that. So, I was talking to somebody, Ravi, and this is a friend's kid in US who said that 3 levels he played and earned some $500 worth of crypto. I don't know what game that was, but while in crypto trading within India, or whether it's about NFTs, the resale value, the secondary market hasn't done so well. Would you say play to earn continues to stay strong?
Yeah, I think there are several narratives. So it has become now X to earn. So people have been walk to earn, eat to earn, sleep to earn, and there are different narratives. But coming back to play to earn, I think the narrative has started with a really big bang, and there have been case studies where gamers playing in Philippines, Vietnam, and certain parts of India as well were able to pay their tuition fee. They were able to pay their rents by playing game because they were earning in crypto and they were cashing it out and actually doing it for their living. But I think that model is not very sustainable, and that's where we are seeing that again there is a scope for innovation out there. And what we are sensing is not just play to earn that would help them, but I think play and earn is a kind of a theme that we are sensing is coming out, right? So where you are playing actually in order to make your credibility. It's not just about earning the cryptos, but you actually play and earn. And that is the model that we are sensing where there are multiple other things needs to combine together, but that's very interesting space. And again, I would be, keeping you updated in terms of the innovation that are going around where they are, it's not just about playing games, but I think there are mixtures which are coming in where gamers are building their reputation and those reputations are earning them money, right? So that's where I'm going play and earn.
Everything has a value, isn't it? So we do understand that Web3 has a lot of challenges. What is a challenge that you think needs to be solved, sorted right now?
Difficult to pinpoint one. I would say, if you ask me, I think the experience is the topmost thing, right? And in my view, I think we are, collectively across all chains, maybe counting as 3 million users. And we are talking about 7 billion plus population, right? So it is a smallest dot, I can say, in terms of the adoption, but the technology has so much promises to do. That's where we are thinking that the user experience has to go to a scale where it becomes easy for anybody to start adopting. And that's where, again, from Polygon perspective, when we think about it, we are trying to sort it out by our mobile strategy. So we are trying to, work it out with different dimensions. I think mobile strategy is one of the way where we are trying to see how we can make it simple, first of all, without asking the user to change their behavior. How can we make the technology available within their same environment, within their same surface? So mobile is a new surface that, more than 5.4 billion users are using, right? So how can we get into the hands of those users? And that's where the adoption would grow. But for that, you need to have kind of an experience where, I really don't worry about how much I do pay for a gas transaction. What is the, way for securing my mnemonics, right? How can I ensure that I don't have to download a new wallet and so on, right? So how can we mask all those complexity, bring it very easy for the users so that they don't worry about the gas transaction and so on, but they just use their email ID in the background, the wallet may get created and they just go like any other application, download it from a mobile and get started. I think that is a kind of challenge we are seeing and we are trying to address that.
So how soon before we get there and what would take us to get there?
I think, so I go back to your questions where you said that, where we are at a toddler stage or where we are at adulthood. I would say that, we are at a stage where we have started running. But that, whether you consider that to be a toddler running or you consider to be an athlete running.
You said money is not a problem when it comes to Web3. What is the problem?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are, investors who are looking out for innovation and there are different pockets of innovations now, or investors, I would say. So not the traditional VCs are the only pockets of money out there, but even the firms which are hungry for innovation, they are all starting their own accelerators and they becomes an additional dimensions in terms of funding the innovation. So money is not a problem. I think, there are 3-4 dimensions. So the first one that I was referring to is builder has to think out of the box. They cannot just create a Me Too kind of a scenario. That's something that we need to address, right? There is so much of composability aspect from a Web3 perspective that the builder should look upon. The second aspect is, how can we get the certainty from the government aspect as well, right? So, especially if I talk about India, I think there is a huge potential. We are seeing that India has now become the top 3 in terms of the unicorns, right? So I think there is a great potential and we are at the forefront for the wave of Web3 this time, right? So I think we need some kind of an, I would say, acceleration in terms of the guidelines. Government is doing really great job in terms of self-adopting the solutions, but I think a little more clarity in terms of how the overall framework would look like for our crypto side of it. And then additionally, I feel bringing in the kind of a culture of not just learning or rather, learning by looking at YouTube or the read material for Web3, but living into it. I think exploring what can be done, playing the games, using a DeFi application, minting your first NFT and so on.
Absolutely. You are a tech company. I mean, you are a crypto company, a scaling company, Web2 company, Web3 company. You're all of that. You're all of that. All right. But we had Varun from Wipro here. I've spoken to blockchain heads of TCS and Tech Mahindra and Infosys as well. So all of these tech companies have made that department. They are leading in so many different ways. They are launching so many blockchains there and ensuring a lot of work being done. Is that a start? Do you see other companies also coming in big way?
100%. Yeah, I think, it would be really difficult if, get a company which says that they don't have that small experimentation room set up for the blockchain exploration, right? I believe that everybody has been looking at this technology very, very curiously. Some of them are leaders. For example, JP Morgan Chase, right, have been doing fabulous work. But then there are people or the companies who are actually waiting on the fence in order to see that kind of a chat GPT aha use case to come and then maybe follow that one. But I think, yes, I 100% agree that, everybody is having a small budget allocated, small resources and a small experimentation room being set up to, think what can be done using this crazy technology.
All right, I'll give you your aha movement as we wind out this conversation, and I'll let you pitch Polygon as well. What is it that you're doing when it comes to Web3? I know there are a lot of challenges being met. There's a lot of work being done as well. What is it that you look forward to when you look at 2023, 24, 25?
So at the moment, I'm looking at two things at Polygon. One is the Web3 mobile strategy, and second is digital identity. So we got a product called as Polygon ID, and I take the first one. So what we are trying to do is we are creating kind of a very interesting ecosystem. We call that as a dApp Store kit. And the way, we have the Apple kit or Android kit, where it makes it super easy for anybody to go build their application. On the similar line, we are creating something called as a dApp Store kit. So this is a kit where it makes it super easy for any Web3 developer to, selectively pick up those modules that are required for their use case, turn out an application. Now, the reason why we call this as kit is it don't just enable the developer to create their application, but it also have something very interesting which we call as a dApp registry. Everybody can come and contribute into this registry. So this registry would expand into hundreds and thousands of applications. Now, this is where we are making it interesting by calling something which can be built using this registry is a dApp Store. So every other organization who feel that they wanted to bring kind of a stickiness to their users, they can come spin up their own dApp Store. We have made reference implementations, all open source for anybody to maybe just spend a couple of days and spin up their own dApp Store. That's easy what we have made for the users. Now, these dApp Stores are going to be an alternate app stores of how you engage with your users. So think like an exchange, right? Where they would give their users kind of an education related app. They wanted to give them NFT related apps. They wanted to give them kind of a DeFi experience. They want to give some commerce experience. They can bring in all those selective applications from this registry, which matter to their customer, and create up that store. And this store would have their own ways of monetization, governance, curations, and so on. So this kind of an alternate app store is one of the strategy where we are thinking that if organizations who wanted to bring stickiness to their users and grow them, I think this is going to be their mobile strategy where it plays awesome. So think about it like any mobile OEM for that matter. Once they have this kind of an alternate store, millions of users would be able to get exposed to all sorts of Web3 applications. They can start with something as simple as bankless applications for reading and understanding what all Web3 means, but they can use something like Mint NFT, where they can go and mint their first NFT, at the same time do some degen stuff of doing some DeFi thing, right? So that's on the first venture, which I'm really excited about on the mobile strategy side. Second one is on the identity side. I think we discussed quite a bit of it, and it is kind of inevitable of excluding Polygon ID, or rather for that matter, any digital identity solutions when it comes to the expansion into the new era. Whether you are creating your gamer profile, whether you are simplifying your user onboarding, whether you wanted to have some kind of a reputation score, right? So today, if I am, let's say, a gold member for Emirate, that is kind of a reputation that I as a user got. But how can I use that reputation in order to maybe get another similar kind of features for any competing airlines, or maybe get that kind of a features when I'm going for an hotel booking and so on. This reputation again become very interesting if we are mixing up with the on-chain data and also bringing in the Web2 data. And that kind of a user reputation facilitated by a digital identity opens a whole new ways of interacting with customer, right? So you are not classifying whether this is my customer or not my customer, right? So it's not 0 to 1, but you can tier it out. You can tier it out based upon various parameters. So if I got a Twitter follower for more than 10,000. I may be getting an X privilege. If I've done 5 transactions onto Ethereum, I would get Y privilege. If I'm holding 5 Bitcoin, I don't want to quote that, but if I'm holding X
You don't want to
digital
quote
asset-
Twitter also, by the way. Let's not get there.
Yeah, so if I have holding X digital assets, then I would get a different kind of, customer engagement. So that kind of a reputation is again going to be across industries, right? So whether it is aviation, retail, education, whatever you name it, everybody would like to have their customer profiling done accurately so that they can spend the money nicely and then have the higher conversion.
Wow, I really hope that people outside this hall also are listening to this. This looks like a very, very different world altogether. But thank you so much, Ravi. Thank you for that conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ravi and Manisha. All right then, a gentle reminder, we have created a Telegram channel, Namaste Web3 Movement, where we will keep the dialogue on beyond today as well. And we'll be updating you about the subsequent chapters. So please scan this code. Also, those of you who have joined us online, I'm sure we can zoom in and have you scan the code as well. All right, next up, it's time for the last panel of the day, my current favorite. It talks about diversity and why diversity matters in Web3. Now, Web3 refers to the next generation of the internet, which is characterized by decentralized blockchain-based systems that enable greater privacy, security, and autonomy for users. Diversity matters in Web3, which refers to the decentralized web powered by blockchain technology because it promotes inclusivity, innovation, and fairness. Without diversity, there is a risk of creating a centralized and exclusive ecosystem which could lead to discrimination and inequality. Moreover, diverse perspectives and experiences foster creativity and help identify and address blind spots in the development process. By prioritizing diversity in Web3, we can ensure that technology benefits all individuals and communities and helps to create a more equitable and just world. In this panel discussion, our experts will explore why diversity is crucial for development and success of Web3. They will examine the benefits and challenges of promoting diversity in this emerging field. To moderate this session, may I once again request Manisha to come back on stage. And also, my panelists for the session are Rajbir Kaur Bindra, Associate Vice President Human Resources, CoinDCX. She leads talent acquisition, employer branding and HR activities, and she has helped hundreds of crypto, blockchain and Web3 enthusiasts start their journey and progress in their careers in this exciting industry that's believed to be the future of technology in India and worldwide. Tarun Katyal, founder and CEO Koto, a social community platform that empowers women through content ownership and collaboration. He has over 20 years of experience. Needs no introduction. He is a strong advocate of blockchain technology and invests and mentors edutech, media tech, businesses with a vision to create a responsible and decentralized web space, especially for women. Swapnika Nag, CEO and co-founder, Hashmail, a Web3 communications and support platform for DApps. Prior to this, she was the CPO at Tata Click and an engagement manager at McKinsey & Company. And Jnana Lakshmi, TC co-founder, the Phoenix Guild. She is a dev advocate at Starkware and co-founder of the Phoenix Guild with over 6 years of experience in the Web3 space. She's passionate advocate for education and diversity and delivers talks in these areas as well. Over to you, panel, and Manisha.
Tarun, how are you feeling sitting with all the women on the stage?
Very privileged.
Amazing. You know, we were doing a show on Network 18 about crypto and Web3 and blockchain and NFTs and all of those things. And we did 12 episodes and not one woman. And then we were like, okay, let's get a woman. And nobody in India. So we had to go abroad, as in, yeah, really. But this was a couple of...
You got to look hard enough.
Yeah, clearly. Now that I see around me, clearly. All right. But yes, inclusivity, diversity, social justice, people of color, there is just so much when you have to talk about diversity. And I want to get the initial comments in, because when we talk about any sector, and when especially we talk about blockchain, there is this conversation on whether or not can this one technology change the way we do business right now, especially when it comes to inclusivity and diversity as well. Tarun, let's start with you.
Okay. So, yeah, I truly believe that, you know, there is no gender divide or gender bias. It's really in our head, and it comes down from, whether it's Web 2, whether it's Web 1, whether it's Web 3, it comes from the pro-tech mentality that has existed in India.
You remember earlier days, there was this big conversation, there are not enough women in blockchain, and then there was this whole huge movement started about women in crypto, women in blockchain. What was that? That was it, yeah.
There were not enough women in banking. And then came, you know, Mr. Kamath, who gave so many women the opportunity to become banking CEOs.
You're not taking names here.
You have to give him the credit for, you know, what he created, right? And it does come down to eventually the set of people who have the power and the influence, that whether they want to be inclusive or not, whether they want to be diverse or not, because I do believe that it is incumbent and responsible upon all of us to be able to find talent and give them their wings, right? And I think talent shouldn't have that gender badge or the gender divide at all, you know, when it comes to whether it's blockchain or whether it comes to Web 2, whether it comes to AI now, because that is the next hot button, right? I'll tell you my own story. When we started to build Koto, people asked us, why do you want to build this for women, and why can't this be an open platform? Why don't, you know, it'll be a much better business proposition if you do it for everybody else, right? You're limiting your business opportunities. We will tell you so later, and so on and so forth, right? It took a lot of convincing myself and everybody else that we were doing the right thing. And there were moments that, you know, that the team also, and women also thought that it was worth giving it up and going for an open platform, right? But there are so many real, relevant, pertinent conversations to be had that Web 2 hasn't done justice to. And if we want going to create a space for women that they can really come and own, as well as have those conversations that they believe are important to them, then what was the point, right? We didn't want to do what Meta had already done or what any other company had already created and done till now. And I think when you start to take steps which you're very convinced about, which you think are going to be really changing the divide and have a deep sense of purpose behind them, then things start to really happen. So whether you're willing to take that first step to change is incumbent on you.
You know, Rajbir, this one is to you, and I have had so many conversations on whether Satoshi was a woman.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, coming to you then. You know, because it's in a very nascent stage, the Web3, do you think it should have diversity at its core? And if yes, how should that be worked on?
Sure. Manisha, thank you for the question. Gender diversity, to me, is not just about probably having even ratio of men and women in a room. It also means to have equal opportunities for both men and women. At the onset, I'd like to thank Web3, the opportunities that are available through Web3 for participants, individuals, in a more open, transparent, very, very clear internet and wealth creation environment. However, despite the emerging tech of Web3, I feel women do face unique challenges. Now, on this Web3 technology and decentralization, I feel they carry huge potential to create more transparent systems by designing ecosystems which are inclusive and developmental.
Fair point that. Swapnika, as Tarun said, banking also was an industry where there were lesser women there. So do you think blockchain, Web3 in that sense, is something that we need to look at to ensure that we can bridge that gap?
I think there are a couple of fundamental differences why diversity becomes crucial for a space like Web3, right? And I don't mean just gender diversity, right? Geographically, culturally, there are just various definitions of it. And in my mind, there are two reasons. One, by their very nature, Web3 products are global. They serve a global audience. Polygon's made in India, built for the world. Shardium's made in India, built for the world. Most of our dApps are. And if you're serving a very diverse global customer, you can't afford to not have your inputs that are diverse in that sense, right? Polygon can't afford to be speaking to customers in India and building for the world. You just can't afford to do that. That's one. And I think the second reason is because Web3 is decentralized, both from most companies are decentralized, teams that are building decentralized products, it becomes very hard to change things a little way down the line. The fact that Ethereum took a long time for it to do its next upgrade just means that if you don't build the base sort of platform well, then everything above that is really going to struggle, right? And that's one of those reasons that it becomes really crucial that right at the get-go you have enough diverse opinions that are baked into the product, and you're just building something that's lasting that much longer.
Nana, what's your sense when I talk about equality, and as Swapnika mentioned, not just on the gender bias, but whether it's about other incomes, geography, all strata, people of color for that matter, there is a lot of conversation on this, but is enough being done on this?
So, I have been in the Web3 ecosystem for about 6.5, almost 7 years now, right? I started writing Solidity code when it was probably version 0.4.x or something. It was very unstable. I think we have come a long way for sure, but we do have a long way to go. I think it's not like we are there yet. We can read the room, right? And we can see there just aren't enough women, because I totally agree with the point that it's not just about having representation, but it's about giving them those opportunities, being able to have a space where they can, ask questions, where they can make use of these opportunities effectively. So I think we are progressing for sure. I feel like one good thing about Web3 is that we can start at the leadership level right now. There was the first session that happened, the keynote. It was asked how many of you want to be entrepreneurs, right? And most of the folks in the room raised their hand. That means we are still yet to see leaders in this space. And if we can tune people, for example, those who raised their hand, if we can tell them right now that, hey, it is not just for the community or for the it factor that you should think about diversity, but you should think about it even from a business perspective, right? A lot of statistics that I have on my phone that I could just, keep reading as we go. But things like 15% increase in profitability if you have a diverse leadership team, 53% return on equity if you have a diverse leadership team. All of these numbers show that it's not just important from an ecosystem standpoint or from a community standpoint. It's important from a business standpoint. So I think now that people have slowly started realizing it, Web3 businesses are just building up. So if we can start now, and I think we should be able to do something or create an ecosystem which is much better than the existing Web2 ecosystem. Right now, people in Web2 are scrambling, right? There are incentives to hire female devs, right? And right now in Web3, people are aware that this is a business requirement. So that in itself is a great incentive. And if we can just keep talking about it, keep spreading this message, I think we'll reach there hopefully sooner than, Web2.
Other sectors.
Manisha, on that point, actually 3 points come to my mind. I feel that there are 3 key points that one should keep in mind while we are talking about diversity in the Web3 space. One is measuring and enabling. A very critical, yet a very granular step, is to measure representation of women across whether it's the founder ecosystem, the employee-led ecosystem, or the investor-led ecosystem. It is important we quantify their scope and then progress into, their progression passively. I also feel that, Web3 technology has the potential to address these issues by enabling decentralized and open systems that promote so much of transparency and accountability. By eliminating intermediaries, and Web3 has that potential also to access opportunities, resources. Additionally, it can create a lot of transparency and democratic systems that enable participations in diverse communities. Number two, I feel growing the women representation, whether that is in the engineering field or in the investment related fields. There is an unconscious bias that sways. You'll find women in marketing, you'll find women in HR, but we should encourage women to be equally involved in the investment-led operations or it is engineering-led ecosystem. Third point that comes to my mind is designing the brand experiences. I feel to be very, very inclusive and supportive. One point that, my fellow member also picked up, creating the widest range of experiences for the broadcast, possible base for both consumers as well as employees. Initiatives like opening up mentorship programs, encouraging more Web3 summits like these, where we have women speakers as a start, and ensuring all genders have equal access to all the benefits and opportunities offered by Web3. It just promotes social and economic equality and creates a more inclusive society, I think. Yes, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, all those 3 points were very, very well said on. Tarun, why don't you take on that? And when we talk about the user experience or we talk about the market share, as almost everybody has spoken about, what is your sense? What has been your experience on that?
So I think, Manisha, the fundamental point is that we can do diversity where we are sitting, and which we should. I think she took that up at leadership level. And then we've got to start building products that women can adopt, and then we bring them into the blockchain ecosystem very early at a mass level, right? Unfortunately, fortunately, my entire career has gone into mass adoption of products, right? I only understand that. And one of the things that when we were doing Koto...
I just want to come back to you. We should make those products which women can adopt.
Right.
Men should make those products that women could adopt?
So you think men can't make products for women?
No, I absolutely can.
What's the point?
Only men can make those products which women can adopt?
You know how many people we have, how many women we have in our team?
How many?
Our head of front end, I was going to make that point, our head of entire team of design, we don't have a single male in our design team. The entire
You're the
user
privileged
experience.
one then.
I'm really privileged, yeah. But when I started my career, and let me take you back 2003, I used to run a company called Star Plus that time, and I used to run all of Star TV's channels in India. And we had a team of 80. And guess how many men we had in that channel, in that team? Take a guess.
20?
2. There was me and my head of research, and that's it. So I've had a long career of having very, very large women teams, right? Same when I ran Sony Entertainment Television, my team was pretty much the same. And Monica Shergill, who runs Netflix today, or Manisha Tripathi, who runs Colors today, all of them were in my team. And Neena Jaipuri, I'm sure you know her, right? All of them, we all work together. And I've always had the privilege of having a large set of women working with me. But the point I was trying to make is that I think mass adoption for women in crypto or in blockchain is very essential. When we built out Koto, we wanted to make sure that all women creators and all women users got into the ecosystem. I met her very early on when we were building the community platform, and we had some very good engaging conversations, and she asked me some very good questions around how we're going to really get the community into it. Today, 3 months down, we launched in Jan, we have about 200,000 women on the platform, and each of them engage or create content or bring referrals into the platform and then earn tokens through that. And so you can imagine how many women have been now inducted into the blockchain ecosystem already. And our hope is that we are already taking this global into MENA and into Southeast Asia, etc. Like she said, all Web3 brands are global by nature and by design. the opportunity that we all have collectively, right? We have 500 million Web2 users in India and across the world, right? To get women very early on through a product that can involve them into participative ownership is huge. I think we've all got to collectively keep looking at the opportunity, keep talking about it, and keep building it very simply so that people can easily adopt. I don't think we can make this too complicated at this stage if you want mass adoption by, either gender, but also by women, right? Make it easy, make it participative, bring them into the fold, let them utilize it, right? Let them to see the advantages of being on a token cap table together with, everybody else. And then you see the wonders that can happen with it. Today, we've kept 50% of our tokenomics for women creators. And that was a big commitment to make for the community. But we believe that that can change the way this business evolves itself. Yeah.
Very well said. I hope I didn't offend you. I was just pulling your leg. Okay, let's talk to you then, Rana. And while so much work is being done, and we talk about not just women, as we've said, but inclusivity and at mass adoption at that level, what is it that needs to be done now? I mean, as Tarun said, lots is being done. They're ensuring, they're putting their neck out to ensure that you can, put it at the core of this.
So let me also maybe go a little bit back in history, not that far, not 20 years ago. But when I started the Phoenix Guild, when we started the Phoenix Guild in 2022, my vision and mission was very simple. I just want to see more women come on stage and talk. One of my personal reasons at that point in time was I was getting invited to too many events. And I was like, no. I can't do this. And you know what? Whenever I tried to nominate another fellow women, I was just not able to find them. I was like, it's a short notice. You want a speaker in 2 days, 3 days. You're not able to find them. And I was like, no, this is like super frustrating. I can't do this anymore. If I'm not able to find talented women, I'm going to create something where I can build up these women, right? I've seen a lot of women, I've met a lot of them, I've worked with a lot of different diversity organizations as well. I volunteered with Women Who Code for almost 6 years, and I continue working with them in whatever capacity possible. And I know that there are these really amazing, talented women who are there. So why are they not getting these opportunities, right? And we started doing very small things. We started with just virtual workshops, talking to people about blockchain, educating them, just doing like introductory workshops. But our initial workshops were women only, right? And then we found that these kind of workshops, and I was discussing with Ovia, who leads the Phoenix Guild Chennai chapter. I have Aditi, who leads the Phoenix Guild Pune chapter, right? These women want a safe space. They want a space where they can discuss not just about Web3, but about opportunities. How do you sort of work to get these opportunities? How do you build your profile? How do you do things? So I think the first and the foremost thing for us as a community to do is to create a safe space, right? Web3 is very new. When you're having discussions, make sure that you're trying to not use too many jargons. Make sure that you're explaining things in a way that it is inclusive, like it is understandable, right? And try to create that safe space in conversations. You can instantly see sometimes when a group of people are talking, whether you want to join that group or not, right? Like you feel like, oh, like it's too crypto bro for me. Sometimes I feel that, right? When I go to conferences abroad. And I think this is a very basic thing that we can do, right? Just make sure to have inclusive spaces where people can come and have open conversations. Because the tech is so new. Everybody needs to talk about, everybody needs to learn so many new things. There's zero knowledge proofs, there's roll-ups, there's account abstraction, all new EIPs that are coming, right? So many topics, and it can be overwhelming. So if you can, definitely create an inclusive space. And the second thing that I feel is that if you want to create something scalable, if you want to see more women, give them more opportunities. Today, I will not be hesitant to nominate any of our Phoenix Guild chapter leads to come and speak on stage, because I have that confidence, and I feel like if I give them the opportunity, irrespective of the fact that they doubt themselves always, that they are not good enough to speak on stage, I am confident that I can give them that opportunity, and I'm confident that they'll do well. So just give them that opportunity. Your colleague, somebody who's your peer, somebody you know who's good with certain topics, just tell them, okay, like, hey, I know of this speaking opportunity, why don't you, So brand building. This is like letting them build a brand by giving them opportunities. This is something we can, and if it is in our capacity, we should definitely do. And third thing that I feel is that having inclusive events. It is very easy to add an inclusive tag to an event, but it is actually very, very difficult to pull off inclusive events. Inclusive events are events or spaces where everyone feels welcome, right? And as ecosystems, as organizations, as people, this is the least we can do for the community, right? Make sure that you are having enough speakers, a diverse set of speakers. Make sure that you are able to, do the outreach in a way that everyone feels comfortable attending. Make sure to not use words like, this is only restricted or only useful for certain type of profiles. Because I feel like right now, even after being in Web3 for almost 7 years, I feel like we are still not there to have restrictive events, right? We are still learning. There's so much to know, so much is changing. Literally the ability to withdraw staked account got activated in Ethereum just 2 days back, right? So we are just getting started. So I think like bare minimum, right? Like try to create safe spaces, be able to give opportunities if you can, and try to create inclusive events. I feel like this is something that like I feel like people can easily do. It's very like low hanging fruit.
Well, yeah, better said than done, I mean, is what we usually see. But Swapnika, coming to you as well, what are the challenges that you feel the industry still faces, and how would you sort them out?
Do you mean specifically from a diversity perspective? Yeah. Okay. So there are two sides to the diversity challenge, right? Are there enough diverse voices in the building side, and are there enough diverse voices in the consuming side? And I think Tarun's answered the consuming side well. And honestly, while I've been in the ecosystem, I won't count myself as a huge consumer. I do some transactions, not enough. I am a builder, so I will take that perspective. And the honest answer, Manisha, is I don't know, right? I think, and this is purely observational, but I've seen women in several verticals in this industry. I've seen a lot of them do community very, very well. I've seen a lot of them do what we call business development, right? Which is very simply sales. And sales is a bloody hard job, and I do it day in, day out. So I have a huge respect for it. The one place I really struggle to find women is on the dev front. I've interviewed between 70 to 80 folks in the last sort of year for my organization, and I must have spoken to 2 women. Okay. Right? And that makes it incredibly hard. You want to hire women. You want to sort of, I mean, you understand very intuitively the value of diversity at the table, but you can't if the ratio is that bad, right? And I don't have an answer to it. I don't have women in my team. I'm ashamed. I've led HR at a large organization. But if it's so bad, I really don't have an option, right? At the end of the day, my loyalty is to my consumer and to my organization, and everything else is secondary. So that's sort of the struggle, and I simply don't have an answer. I think TPG does a fantastic job of sort of, bringing women, like giving them the space to do it. I think there are a few more organizations that do it. I think there's a lot more that needs to be done.
All right. So let's talk about strategies then. We do understand the problem here, and yes, while we seem to be...
I was going to just say to the point that she made, I think we had to go global to find enough women on the team, right? And to go remote. I can't afford to. Right? Actually, you may end up saving some money if you go global, but not to say that India doesn't have good talent, but talent is equally cost effective across the world now. And also going remote, right? I think a lot more women come back to work if they're remote. Our head of front end is out of Jaipur. She decided to move back from a big town into a small town and work from there. She's an excellent dev, right? Woman right on top. But because she is allowed to be at home, she has a little baby who she can take care of. She's far more comfortable, doing what she's doing. If we were to call her to Bombay or to Bangalore or to Pune and expect her to set up her entire life again, it may or may not have been the same case. So I think going remote and going global can get many more women onto the workplace. Yeah.
So, that was exactly the question I was asking. What is the strategy then? And you've given us a part of strategy onto this one. And doesn't blockchain and Web3 and all of this in some sense tell you that you really don't have to come to an office and be there? You can work from...
Actually, the whole world is doing this now, right? And now people are calling people back to work and there's inertia. But the word is decentralization. So I'm quite lucky, right? We have a Polish CTO who comes from this background and said, listen, we want to make a decentralized space. We want to have decentralized moderation for users on the platform. We want to have decentralized ownership. Why don't we have decentralized way of working in our development team? And he's really built the entire technology stack to be extremely composable, extremely decentralized. Anybody can work from anywhere and can add to the code and can easily compose it. So I think he had that mindset from the very beginning that he's going to allow for it to be very remote. In fact, the community team, the sales team, the marketing team comes to work, but the devs are all remote and go between Taiwan to Poland. And that also because we wanted to make sure that there were enough overlapping hours. Our entire design team is women, our entire product team is women, and a lot of the devs are women. And because we kept that filter, we said, okay, you can be wherever you want to be, but you must be of a certain gender, at least preferred to be of a certain gender. We were able to achieve what we've achieved.
All right, there's so much to learn.
I don't know, but I think I will read into Manisha.
No, I'm actually coming with strategy. So if you have a strategy on this, please go
I
ahead with
have
that.
a hypothesis, Manisha, right? So I disagree with Tarun on one bit because, we are a young organization. We don't have tech leads. We only have devs who are doing everything, right? And the average age of the organization leaving me and my co-founders between 21 to 23. So they don't have the problems of kids. They don't have the problems of marriages. We're all remote, so that's not a problem. So I think for me, the hypothesis of why I don't find as many women in the development team is it's an ecosystem that seems and sounds esoteric. It's an ecosystem that's confusing and it's just intimidating, right? And maybe it's a generalization, but I felt like it's easier. I've seen a lot of men just fake it. I don't think most people in this ecosystem really understand the ecosystem. Everyone scratches the surface, and that's true for all of us. I think most of us out here. I think it's easier for, men to not know and still be confident enough to go ahead and do things. And I'm sure Gyan will know this, but until you're fairly convinced that you deeply understand the problem, a lot of women really struggle to sort of go out there and say, yes, I will do this.
Well,
and
that's so many intimidating men also.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, that may be true, and I think you have a real point there, and I think we've got to encourage women to take more risks and say, hey, I don't know it, but I know the first step and I'm going to walk down the path. And yes, a lot of men young men end up taking far more risks. I don't know why. I wouldn't hazard a guess. I'm not young anymore. But the fact is that, yes, they end up telling you a lot of things that they don't know also. We interview a lot of people that we realize aren't as intelligent about some of this stuff that they claim to be. And women are far more sincere about it. And we still go for women even if they don't know, because we are willing to invest in their knowledge, education. One of my marketing leads, and actually my co-founders here, she wrote to us yesterday and saying, I'm going to do a whole Web3 marketing course globally, and will you pay for it? And I said, yeah, she comes from classic, PR, regular marketing, but she wanted to understand what GTM versus GTC is and so on and so forth. And she's willing to say, I don't know, and we very respect that, and we want to invest in her growth around that. Yeah.
Okay, you two have spoken enough now. Raghavi, let me come to you then. So what is the challenge that you see? And as they have been talking about, how do you make this situation a welcoming one for the women, or diversity, let's say?
Sure. So at CoinDCX, we recognize the importance of gender diversity in the blockchain and both the crypto industry. Our HR programs are in line with the future growth plans of CoinDCX, and we continue to attract talent and forward and probably bring them in the world of crypto to retail investors. A recent initiative that was very successful in supporting work at CoinDCX was the flexibility. They could choose their working hours. The company has since then come a very long way, but of course there's a huge road to cross and cover. Hence, our policies ensure that they achieve consistent growth and progress in this aspect. We currently have a gender ratio of about 20 to 25%, and we're working towards, continuing to work towards the recruiting and retaining the women and non-binary talent individuals across levels of the organization, and to ensure that they have equal access to opportunities and resources.
Fair point that, and with that, it's all the time that we have on the panel, but thank you so much. There are various issues, but as pointed out, there's a lot being done. There are way more women now, as have been said. I just have one quick final question for all of you here. 5 years from now, Rajbi, how would you look at this space? Is enough being done? Is enough being done, or more needs to be done?
Yes, I think quite grown. Yeah, I'd say it'll be way too long. It'll be very, very grown space in 5 years from now. It'll be revolutionary.
Inclusivity, mass adoption,
yes.
Disparity, do you think all of that would be sorted?
There's a long way to grow, but I think we'll be doing very well in that space as well in 5 years.
I think it's very incumbent on all of us in the room to, and you have to divide this in two, right? One is what we do at the management, at the technology level, but at the other is on the consumer side. I think while we want to do a lot around who we are and how many of us should be in this room, but also how many of the users who adopt this technology and how many of them are gender divided, I think it's very essential that we focus on that part of the business. And for me, actually, that part of the business grown to a certain significant level will be very, very happy, and we'll be in a good space then.
Yeah, I would say, I think this is also a strategy if you want to take it as one. I would say that the need of the hour right now is education. You can term it as education for developers, education for people, education for non-crypto folks. I think if everyone at leadership level or potentially going to leadership level realizes that education should be a part of anything and everything Web3, I think we will be in a much better position 5 years down the line. To be very honest, I don't think it's going to be mass adoption in 5 years, but at least we would have figured out what are some key missing pieces for this mass adoption, because we would have been educated enough by then to figure this out. And I think right now that is a key missing piece. People are doing events, people are doing, there are a lot of initiatives that are ongoing, but there isn't too much key focus or investment in the education space, largely because it's not a quick buck making scenario, right? But if you realize that it is one of the biggest blockers in Web3, people are not aware. Like, there are not enough developers who know how to develop. There are not enough marketing PR folks who know how to strategize to actually build a brand for a product. And if we start looking at some of these flaws and start working towards this, start investing in this, I think 5 years down the line, we'll be having an altogether different conversation.
Not enough women, not enough marketing people, not enough sales people. What are we really lacking right now?
If you ask me, where will we be 5 years down the line, Manisha, I will say I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm answering a lot of questions with I don't know today. But very simply, I think I'm a healthy skeptic, and I feel like Web3 hasn't found its product market fit, right? And if Web3 hasn't found PMF and we are at 3 million users, like Gaurav said, you can solve for diversity, it doesn't solve the industry problem. I'm saying we should get more people to use it, and then we'll start getting more women to use it. I think we're somewhere along the way. I think Ravi mentioned this. There are a lot of things that are being done today to dramatically improve user experience, to dramatically make it easier for people to come on board. But yeah, Web3 needs to find its product market fit before that happens.
Oh, well, there's just so much to be done. But I can tell you one thing, with all the events that we've been doing and all the cities that we've been going to and the kind of mix that we get into and the kind of feedback that we get with these events that we're doing, at least what we're doing is getting all stakeholders under one roof. And there's a lot of conversation, I can assure you, that is going on with this. Namaste Web3, and that's the last panel of the day. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, panelists, for being here, and yet another amazing conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody. Thank you for that wonderful discussion, and it's been a wonderful day full of informative sessions. But before we bring this event to a close, may I request Mr. Gaurav Arora, SVP DeFi Initiatives, CoinDCX, to come back on stage for a vote of thanks.
Hi everyone. I should say Namaste everyone. This was for me a really interesting session. Every city we've been to, this is the third session. We've actually had a completely different set of people, completely different set of conversations. Just seeing the kind of age group that has come here, the diversity that has come here, the conversations that happen. It's super exciting and super encouraging. I hope all of you found it also very useful. I personally took a lot of things away. Learned a lot from every session. Varun's session, there was a great tidbit on DigiYatra. I am going to go read the FAQs. I think the conversations on diversity very relevant. Would have loved to see way more representation in this room. Hopefully the next time we come back here, that will improve. So, go back from here. Talk about Web3, talk about what you've learned. And if there's one thing that you take away, this is just a stepping stone. I think there's just a lot more to explore. Like I said, this is the inception moment of the Big Bang. There's a lot more coming. Come join the bandwagon. Come learn. Come bring in your diverse perspectives, because evolution loves diversity. The more different types of stimulus it gets, the more it grows, the faster it grows. So really looking forward to having all of you come here. Thanks a lot for everybody taking out the time. People from the community, this is really a community thing. So really looking for you to join the community. Those the community you've taken out the time, Bharat Web3 Association, Mr. Dilip. So everybody who's just come here, it's really, really amazing for all of you to be here. Thanks a lot, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you Gaurav so much, and that brings us to the end of Forbes India and CoinDCX present Namaste Web3, making India Web3 ready, supported by Bharat Web3 Association, Pune edition. Hope you have joined the Telegram channel, Namaste Web3 Movement. Those of you who have missed it, please scan the code and join the channel. I'm seeing a lot of mobiles going up. All right, with that, it's a big thank you. And of course, Namaste Web3.